Hello everyone, and welcome to the Fictional Vortex. So we are back with an interesting movie on what if Naruto was the Supreme Saiyan God, Master of Ultra Sage. Instinct Naruto x Marcarita, Dragon Ball Super. But before we start, I just want to remind you to please subscribe to my channel and hit the like button if you enjoy my content. Let's start the story. Chapter 1. Dimensional Convergence. The full moon hung impossibly large over Konoha, casting silver light across rebuilt structures that still carried the architectural echoes of the village's past. Naruto Uzumaki stood atop the Hokage monument, his white cloak billowing gently in the night breeze. 3 years had passed since the Fourth Great Ninja War, and peace had settled across the Shin Obi nations like a comfortable blanket, predictable, secure, and lately, just a little stifling. He extended his hand toward the distant horizon where strange aurora-like lights had been flickering for the past 3 nights. No one else seemed concerned, most dismissed the phenomenon as an unusual weather pattern. But Naruto felt something different, a subtle disturbance in natural energy that made his skin prickle with anticipation. "You feel it too, don't you?" he murmured to the presence within him. Kurama's voice rumbled through his consciousness. "Something is thinning between worlds. This isn't natural chakra behavior." Naruto nodded, his features sharpened by moonlight. At 20, he'd grown into his power with a quiet confidence that had replaced his youthful bluster. The scar marks on his cheeks seemed more pronounced tonight, his blue eyes reflecting the mysterious lights as he tracked their movements. "I'm going to check it out." "Naturally, ***, Kurama replied with resigned amusement. "You never could leave a mystery alone." With a slight smile, Naruto leapt from the monument, channeling chakra through his body in a practiced motion. The village blurred beneath him as he bounded across rooftops toward the training grounds and forest beyond. The familiar weight of his headband, worn now on his arm rather than his forehead, reassured him as he moved. Anomalies had first appeared near the valley where he and Sasuke had their final battle. Something about that location, already charged with historical significance, seemed to act as a focal point for whatever was occurring. As he approached, the air itself felt different, carrying an energy unlike chakra or natural energy, something both ancient and unfamiliar. Naruto slowed his pace as he entered the clearing. The aurora lights were much more vibrant here, swirling in patterns that seemed almost deliberate. At the center of the phenomenon, the air appeared to be folding in on itself, creating a distortion in space that twisted light around its edges. "I've never seen anything like this," he whispered, extending his senses. In sage mode, the disturbance appeared as a nexus of energy unlike anything in his experience, neither the warm flow of chakra nor the balanced harmony of natural energy. This was something else entirely, something that seemed to exist simultaneously in multiple states. The distortion suddenly pulsed, expanding outward before contracting violently. Naruto instinctively dropped into a defensive stance, kunai materializing in his hand. The air crackled with electricity, and with a sound like shattering glass, the distortion split open. A figure emerged from the tear in reality, tall, elegant, and distinctly not human. Silver blue hair cascaded down her back, contrasting with pale lavender skin. She wore elaborate clothing that seemed to belong to no nation Naruto recognized, and carried a long staff topped with a floating ring. Most striking were her eyes, pale blue with intricate pupils that seemed to contain universes within them. The woman surveyed the surroundings with clinical interest before her gaze settled on Naruto. Her expression remained neutral, but something like surprise flickered across her features. "Interesting," she said, her voice melodious yet precise. "I didn't expect to find someone consciously monitoring the convergence point." Naruto maintained his stance but lowered his kunai slightly. "Who are you, and what is this convergence you're talking about?" The woman tilted her head, studying him with unsettling intensity. "I am Marcarita, angel attendant to the god of destruction of Universe 11. She stated this as though reciting an obvious fact. "And you possess a most unusual energy signature, one that shouldn't exist in this particular dimensional pocket." Naruto narrowed his eyes, processing her words. God of Destruction, Universe 11. These terms held no meaning in his world. "I'm Naruto Uzumaki, shinobi of Konohagakure. Whatever you're looking for, if it threatens my village or my world, I'll stop you." Something that might have been amusement crossed Marcarita's face. How admirably direct. But I'm not here to threaten anything. I'm investigating anomalies in the dimensional barriers that have kept your world isolated from the greater multiverse for millennia. She tapped her staff gently against the ground, and the ring at its top began projecting what looked like a three-dimensional map composed of interconnected spheres. The multiverse consists of 12 primary universes, each with their own reality structures and governing deities. Your world exists within a sealed pocket dimension connected to Universe 7, created long ago during a conflict you might recognize in your histories. Images flickered through the projection: planets, stars, beings of immense power, and finally, a familiar pale figure with horns and white eyes. Kagaya Otsutsuki, Naruto breathed. Indeed, though your histories record only a fragment of the truth, the Otsutsuki clan were once connected to the divine hierarchy before certain members began harvesting worlds for their own purposes. Naruto absorbed this information, his mind racing. Everything they had learned about Kagaya and the Otsutsuki had only scratched the surface of a much larger reality. But something else nagged at him. You said I have an unusual energy signature. What did you mean by that? Marcarita's eyes gleamed with scientific curiosity. You possess 3 distinct energy types coexisting within your body. He energy native to this dimension, what you call chakra. The natural energy you've learned to harness through what you term sage mode. And beneath those, she paused, studying him more intently, dormant but present, is Ki, specifically. Ki with markers common to a warrior race called Saiyans. Saiyans. The word felt strange on Naruto's tongue. I've never heard of such people. You wouldn't have. They originate from Universe 7. And your connection to them is distant at best. But it's there, perhaps explaining your unusual adaptability and recovery capabilities. Kurama stirred within Naruto's consciousness. She's perceiving something beyond my awareness. This being is not to be underestimated. Marcarita's eyes shifted slightly. And your tailed beast companion, another anomaly. A consciousness constructed from one energy type yet capable of interacting with others. Naruto stiffened. You can hear Kurama. Not precisely. I can perceive the energy fluctuations when you communicate. She gestured with her staff toward the dimensional tear, which remained open behind her. But discussions should wait. The convergence is progressing faster than anticipated, and others will be arriving shortly. As if summoned by her words, 3 more figures emerged from the portal. The first was immensely tall and muscular with red skin and a stern expression. Following him came a slender gray-skinned alien with large black eyes, and finally, a humanoid figure with a distinctive mustache and proud bearing. Marcarita, the red-skinned giant, addressed her with formal respect. The dimensional readings are unstable. Belmod requests your assessment immediately. In a moment, Topo, she replied. I've encountered something unexpected, a native with unusual energy compatibilities. The 3 newcomers turned their attention to Naruto, evaluating him with varying degrees of skepticism. This is the anomaly, the mustached man asked, unimpressed. He appears to be an ordinary humanoid. Appearances can be deceiving, Khosrul, Marcarita responded. Especially in matters of cosmic significance. The gray alien moved forward with fluid grace. His power level is substantial but unrefined. I detect no key control whatsoever. Naruto maintained his composure despite feeling like a specimen under examination. I don't know what key is, but if you're looking for a demonstration of power, I'm happy to oblige. The red giant, Topo, stepped forward. I am Topo, leader of the Pride Troopers of Universe 11. We uphold justice across our universe. If you truly possess capabilities worthy of note, demonstrate them. Without waiting for further invitation, Naruto closed his eyes momentarily. When he opened them again, they had transformed to golden irises with horizontal bar-like pupils. Orange pigmentation surrounding his eyes. Natural energy surged through his body, enhancing his perception and strength. This is Sage Mode, he explained, feeling the familiar balance of energies. The 3 Pride Troopers registered varying degrees of surprise, but Marcarita merely nodded as if confirming a hypothesis. Interesting energy manipulation, Topo acknowledged. But lacking the focused power of Ki. Naruto smiled slightly. This is just the beginning. Golden chakra suddenly erupted around him, enveloping his body in flickering energy that resembled flames. His appearance transformed further, the whisker marks deepening, his eyes shifting to a deeper orange-red with slitted pupils. 9 radiant tails of chakra extended behind him, and intricate black markings appeared on his golden form. The force of the transformation caused the air to ripple outward, making the trees sway and forcing the Pride troopers to brace themselves. Only Marcarita remained unaffected, watching with analytical interest. "This is 6 Paths Sage mode combined with Kurama's chakra," Naruto stated, his voice carrying a deeper resonance. "A power born from partnership, not conquest." Toppo's expression shifted from skepticism to cautious respect. "Impressive manifestation. The energy signature is unlike anything in our universe." The gray alien, whose name Naruto hadn't caught, produced a device that emitted a series of beeps as it scanned him. "Fascinating. The energy readings are off the conventional scale, yet he doesn't appear to be drawing from destructive ki at all." Marcarita stepped forward, her staff glowing softly. "As I suspected, his energy system is entirely different from our universal constants, yet there are underlying compatibilities." She addressed Naruto directly. "Your power is substantial by any standard, but it remains limited to the frameworks of this dimensional pocket. There is potential for much more." Naruto allowed his transformation to subside, returning to his base form. "You keep talking about potential and different energy types. What exactly are you suggesting?" "The dimensional barriers are weakening," Marcarita explained. "What was once separated is beginning to converge. This presents both opportunity and danger, particularly for someone with your unique heritage." The word hung in the air, laden with implications Naruto couldn't fully grasp. Toppo cleared his throat. "Marcarita, we should report back to Lord Belmont. These findings are significant." "Indeed." She turned to Naruto. "The convergence will continue whether we intervene or not. Your world will soon face energies and entities it has never encountered, some benevolent, others less so. Your unusual constitution may make you pivotal in what comes next." Naruto considered her words, feeling the weight of new responsibility settling on shoulders long accustomed to burden. "What would you have me do?" "Come with me to Universe 11. Learn about the energies that exist beyond your world. Discover the potential dormant within you." Her tone remained measured, but something like urgency colored her words. "The choice is yours, but knowledge will be your greatest weapon in what's to come." Kurama's voice rumbled through Naruto's mind. "I sense no deception from her, but there's much she isn't saying. Whatever lies beyond that portal is unknown territory, even to me." Naruto gazed at the dimensional tear, swirling with energies he couldn't name. The shinobi world had known peace for years now, but peace had never meant the absence of responsibility. If new threats were emerging, he couldn't ignore them. "I'll need to inform the Hokage and make arrangements," he said finally. "How long would this journey take?" "Time flows differently between dimensions," Marcarita replied, "but we can ensure your return coincides closely with your departure in this world." Toppo stepped forward, his massive form imposing even in the moonlight. "If you choose to come, you will be under the protection of the Pride troopers, so long as you adhere to the principles of justice." The gray alien nodded. "We are selective about those we permit into our universe. Consider it an honor." Naruto smiled slightly at the familiar tone of prideful authority. It reminded him of certain Hyuga clan members. "I appreciate the offer, but I don't require protection. I'm coming to learn, not to be sheltered." Marcarita's lips curved in what might have been the ghost of a smile. "Well stated. Prepare what you need, Naruto Uzumaki. We'll maintain the dimensional access point until your return." As dawn broke over Konoha, Naruto stood in Kakashi's office, having explained the night's events as best he could. The 6th Hokage leaned back in his chair, visible eye creased in contemplation. "Alternate universes, gods of destruction, and alien angels," Kakashi summarized. "It sounds like one of Jiraiya's more creative novels." "I know how it sounds," Naruto admitted. "But you've felt the disturbances in natural energy too. Something is happening beyond our understanding." Kakashi nodded slowly. "I've dispatched Anbu to Moni. Tour the aurora phenomena at other locations. Reports are coming in from all 5 great nations about similar disturbances." He fixed Naruto with a searching look. "Are you certain about this? Venturing into unknown dimensions carries risks we can't anticipate. If I don't go, we remain blind to whatever's coming, Naruto replied. Besides, there's something about this Marcarita, she knows GS about the Otsutsuki that might help us prevent future threats. And this mention of your heritage. Naruto shrugged, attempting nonchalance despite the questions burning within him. Maybe it's nothing, but if there's a part of my history I don't know, something beyond being the fourth son or Kurama's Jinchuriki, I want to understand it. Kakashi's expression softened. Your parents would be proud of the man you've become. Naruto, just promise me you'll exercise the caution that eluded you in your younger years. With a grin that briefly transformed him back into the mischievous boy Kakashi remembered, Naruto replied. I'm a sage now, Kakashi-sensei. Caution is part of the job description. So you keep saying, yet evidence remains scarce, Kakashi retorted dryly. He stood, retrieving a scroll from his desk. Take this. It's a special storage seal designed by the research division, should work regardless of dimensional location. I've included soldier pills, weapons, and some of Sakura's advanced medical supplies. Naruto accepted the scroll with genuine gratitude. Thank you. I'll check in with Shikamaru before I leave. He should coordinate with the other villages about these phenomena. Already arranged. Kakashi moved to the window, gazing out at the village beginning its day, unaware of cosmic barriers weakening around them. How long before you depart? Midday. There are a few people I need to see first. Kakashi nodded, understanding the unspoken names. Go then. And Naruto. He paused, eye crinkling in a smile visible even through his mask, bring back some interesting techniques. Would you? For research purposes. With a laugh, Naruto departed in a flash of movement, leaving Kakashi to contemplate the changing nature of their world. The Hyuga Sea compound remained one of the most traditional areas in the rebuilt Konoha, its architecture deliberately preserved to honor clan heritage. Naruto found Hinata in the private garden where she often trained, moving through forms that combined traditional gentle fist with innovations of her own design. He paused to watch her, admiring the fluid precision of her movements. Their relationship had evolved, over the years into deep friendship and mutual respect, though not the romance many had anticipated. Both had recognized that their paths, while interconnected, led in different directions. Hinata completed her sequence before acknowledging his presence. You're leaving again, she stated without preamble, her lavender eyes meeting his with characteristic directness. News travels fast, Naruto replied, stepping into the garden. Hanabi mentioned unusual chakra signatures near the valley last night. When I activated my Byakugan to check, I saw your chakra interacting with something I've never witnessed before. She wiped her brow with a small towel. The energy wasn't chakra or natural energy. It was older, somehow. Naruto nodded, unsurprised by her perception. The Byakugan's capabilities had always been underestimated. It's complicated, but you're right. I'm leaving to investigate energies from beyond our world, literally beyond our dimension. Rather than expressing disbelief, Hinata merely nodded thoughtfully. The clan archives mentioned something similar, ancient texts describing visitors from the stars with energy that flowed differently from chakra. She gestured for him to follow her to a stone bench beneath a flowering tree. When I was researching Himura's connection to the moon, I found references to powers beyond the Otsutsuki. You believe these texts? Naruto asked, genuinely curious about her perspective. Hinata smiled slightly. After everything we've witnessed, I've learned to keep an open mind. Besides, her expression grew more serious, the Byakugan sees truth in energy. Whatever I observed last night was real, if unfamiliar. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment before she continued. How long will you be gone? I'm not certain. There's talk of different time flows between dimensions. He hesitated before adding, I may learn things about myself, about my ancestry beyond what we know. Hinata's expression softened with understanding. You've always sought connections to your past. Just remember that whatever you discover doesn't change who you've chosen to become. The wisdom in her words struck him, and Naruto felt a rush of gratitude for her friendship. I'll remember that. He stood, knowing time was short. Keep an eye on things while I'm gone. Especially these energy disturbances, your Byakugan might perceive changes others would miss. She nodded, rising gracefully. I will. And Naruto, she hesitated briefly, be careful with these beings. Even allies from other worlds will have priorities we can't fully comprehend. Spoken like a true diplomat, he replied with a smile, recognizing the political acumen she developed in recent years. I'll watch my step. Their farewell was brief but warm, a testament to the strength of understanding that had grown between them. The forest clearing looked different in daylight, more ordinary, despite the dimensional tear hovering at its center like a wound in reality. Marcarita stood beside it, conversing quietly with Toppo while the other Pride troopers examined the surrounding area. Naruto approached with measured steps, a small pack slung over his shoulder containing only essentials. He'd changed into his standard mission gear, black and orange, practical yet distinctively his own. Marcarita turned as he approached, her otherworldly eyes assessing him. You've decided to accompany us, then. I have questions that need answers, Naruto replied simply. As do we all, she responded with enigmatic precision. Are you prepared? The transition between dimensions can be disorienting for first-time travelers. Naruto patted the storage scroll at his hip. As ready as I can be without knowing what to expect. Toppo approached, towering over both of them. We've completed our survey. The dimensional thinning extends approximately 4 kilometers in each direction, centered on this point. He regarded Naruto with formal acknowledgement. Our universe operates under different physical laws and contains powers beyond what you've encountered. You would do well to observe carefully before acting. Noted, Naruto replied evenly. Though adaptation has always been my specialty. The gray alien, whom Naruto had learned was named Kettle, joined them, still monitoring readings on his device. The portal stability has improved by 12%. We should depart before the next fluctuation cycle. Marcarita nodded. Indeed, she extended her staff toward the dimensional tear, causing it to expand slightly. Naruto Uzumaki, K.E.P. Your consciousness focused during transition. Your unique energy constitution may experience interesting effects. Before Naruto could ask for clarification, she stepped through the portal, disappearing instantly. Toppo gestured for him to follow next. Taking a deep breath, Naruto centered himself, allowing Sage Mode to activate partially, enough to heighten his awareness without full transformation. With one last glance at the familiar forest of his world, he stepped forward into swirling unknown. The transition defied description. It wasn't movement through space as much as simultaneous existence in multiple states. His consciousness stretched thin across what felt like infinite possibilities before snapping back into cohesion. Colors he had no names for washed over his perception, and for a brief, extraordinary moment, he felt Kurama's presence expand beyond their shared bond, touching something vast and ancient. This is unexpected. The fox's voice echoed, somehow both distant and immediate. I feel as though I'm remembering something I never experienced. Then reality reasserted itself, and Naruto found himself standing on solid ground, though nothing around him resembled the world he knew. They had emerged onto a vast platform floating among clouds tinged with purple and gold. Elaborate structures of unknown material rose in geometric patterns that seemed to defy conventional architecture. In the distance, planets were visible in the sky, far closer than any celestial body should appear. Welcome to the sacred world of the Kai, Marcarita stated, observing his reaction. A neutral meeting ground between universes where divine energies converge. Naruto fought to maintain his composure despite the wonder threatening to overwhelm him. This is not what I expected. Few things in the multiverse conform to expectation, she replied. That is its primary charm. Toppo and the other Pride troopers materialized behind them, seemingly unaffected by the transition. Lord Belmont awaits in the central pavilion, Toppo announced. He is curious about our visitor. Naruto followed their lead across the platform, observing everything with heightened senses. The air itself felt different, richer somehow, charged with energy that made his skin tingle. He noticed small, floating creatures that resembled fish swimming through the air, and plants unlike any he'd seen growing from the edges of the platform. The energy here, he began, struggling to articulate what his senses perceived. It's everywhere, but differently from natural energy in my world. What you're detecting is the ambient key that permeates our universe, Marcarita explained. Unlike your chakra, which must be developed within a living being, key exists independently and can be drawn upon by those with proper training. Could I learn to use it? Naruto asked, analytical mind already considering possibilities. That came a new voice, rich with authority and subtle menace. As the interesting question, they had reached a circular pavilion where a slender figure lounged on an ornate chair. His skin was deep red like Toppo's, but there the similarity ended. This being had the appearance of a cosmic jester, pointed ears, black-rimmed eyes, and lips painted black against his red face. He wore elaborate clothes of black, white, and gold, and exuded an aura of casual power that made Naruto instinctively cautious. Lord Belmont, Marcarita acknowledged with a slight bow. May I present Naruto Uzumaki of the Shinobi Dimension, the energy anomaly we detected. Belmont's eyes, sharp and calculating despite his whimsical appearance, focused on Naruto with unsettling intensity. So this is the curious hybrid Marcarita reported. Approach, Shinobi. Let me see what has my angel attendant so intrigued. Naruto stepped forward, meeting the deity's gaze without flinching. I'm here to learn about the dimensional convergence affecting my world, and apparently about aspects of myself I wasn't aware of. A thin smile curved Belmont's black lips. Direct, isn't he? I appreciate that. He rose from his seat with fluid grace, circling Naruto with predatory interest. You carry multiple energy signatures. Most dominant is this chakra, native to your dimension, but beneath that. Without warning, Belmont extended a hand, and Naruto felt something like invisible fingers probing at his core. Instinctively, he reinforced his chakra barrier. Belmont's eyebrows rose, resistant to divine energy probing. Interesting. He stepped back, addressing Marcarita. You were correct. There's dormant Saiyan ki potential there, though how it came to exist in an isolated dimension raises concerning questions. Saiyans, Naruto stated firmly. You're the second person to mention them. What exactly are they, and what connection do I supposedly have to them? Belmont returned to his seat, gesturing for Naruto to stand before him. The Saiyans are a warrior race from Universe 7, brutish and aggressive by nature, though occasionally producing individuals of note. They possess the unique ability to grow stronger after recovering from near-death experiences and under certain conditions. Can transform into more powerful states. Transformations driven by emotion, Marcarita added. Not unlike your Jinchuriki forms, though the mechanism is entirely different. Naruto processed this information, connecting it with his own experiences. And you believe I have Saiyan ancestry. How is that possible? Belmont exchanged a glance with Marcarita before answering. The dimensional pocket containing your world was created during the era of the first gods of destruction, long before my time. Records suggest it was part of an arrangement between Hakaishi, Inbara and certain members of the Otsutsuki clan who wished to experiment with new energy forms. What we now recognize as chakra, Marcarita clarified. A synthetic energy system created by combining natural ki with divine essence. Originally intended as a power source that mortals could access without the decades of training ki manipulation requires. Toppo, who had remained silent during this exchange, stepped forward. Lord Belmont, the dimensional readings suggest accelerating convergence. If the shinobi world is rejoining the main universal structure, then its inhabitants will be exposed to energies their bodies aren't evolved to handle, Belmont finished, his expression grave. Except, perhaps, for those with compatible heritage. Naruto felt the weight of implication in those words. You're suggesting I might be able to help my people adapt to these new energies. If you can master both systems yourself, Marcarita confirmed. Which is why I suggested bringing you here. Your dormant Saiyan ki, combined with your existing mastery of chakra and natural energy, creates a unique opportunity. But first, Belmont interjected, rising again, we should confirm our theory. He fixed Naruto with an intense stare. I'm going to release a measured pulse of destruction energy. If you have Saiyan cells, they will react distinctively. Before Naruto could respond, Belmont extended his hand and released a pulse of violet energy that washed over him like a wave. The sensation was unlike anything he'd experienced, not painful, but deeply unsettling, as though his very atoms were being evaluated. Within him, Kurama growled in warning. This energy, it's similar to what the Otsutsuki wielded, but more refined. Be careful, Naruto. The pulse subsided, and Belm's expression shifted to one of satisfaction. unmistakable. Saiyan cellular response, though diluted by generations of mixing with your dimension's native population. How did Saiyan DNA end up in my world at all? Naruto asked, regaining his composure. Marcarita answered, her tone measured as always. The historical records suggest that when your dimensional pocket was created, several Universe 7 species were introduced as part of the experiment, including a small Saiyan contingent. Over generations, they integrated with the native population, their distinctive key abilities gradually subsumed by the prevalent chakra system. The Uzumaki clan's legendary vitality and special chakra, Naruto murmured, connecting pieces of his own history. Could that be related? A reasonable hypothesis, Marcarita acknowledged. The red hair characteristic of Uzumaki clan members is not dissimilar to certain Saiyan phenotypes from Universe 7's past. Belmod clapped his hands suddenly, the sound echoing across the pavilion. Fascinating as this genealogy lesson is, we have more pressing concerns. The dimensional convergence continues to accelerate, and if your world is to survive reintegration, preparations must begin immediately. He turned to Toppo. Assemble the core Pride troopers. If this shinobi is to unlock his dormant ki alongside his existing powers, he'll need proper training. Naruto stepped forward, his expression resolute. Before we proceed further, I need to understand what's at stake. Why is this dimensional convergence happening now, after thousands of years of separation? Belmod and Marcarita exchanged another look, one that Naruto recognized as the silent communication of those who shared information they were reluctant to voice. Tell him, Belmod finally ordered. He deserves to know what his world faces. Marcarita nodded, her staff materializing in her hand. With a gesture, she created a complex holographic display showing 12 interconnected spheres, with smaller bubbles attached to several. The multiverse exists in a state of delicate balance, she began. 12 primary universes, each with its own god of destruction and supreme Kai who maintain equilibrium. Your world exists in one of several pocket dimensions created during ancient experiments, separated from the main universal structure but still tethered to it. The display zoomed in on one of the smaller bubbles, showing it slowly being drawn toward a larger sphere. Approximately 50 years ago, by your world's time measurement, a significant cosmic event occurred, the awakening of Beerus, the god of destruction of Universe 7, after decades of slumber. His awakening, followed by the emergence of a being of unprecedented power, created ripple effects throughout the multiverse. This being, Belmod continued, his voice tinged with what might have been jealousy, achieved a form of divine power previously thought accessible only to gods. The resulting dimensional instability has been gradually affecting all pocket dimensions, drawing them back toward their parent universes. Naruto watched the holographic display, observing as the bubble representing his world moved inexorably toward reintegration. And when this convergence completes? Two possibilities, Marcarita replied clinically. Either your dimension reintegrates smoothly, with its inhabitants gradually adapting to the expanded universal laws, or the incompatibility between energy systems causes catastrophic collapse, Belmod finished, resulting in the destruction of your entire world and everyone in it. The bluntness of the statement hung in the air, its implications crystal clear. Naruto's expression hardened with determination. Then we prevent the collapse, he stated, Huff the alternative were inconceivable. You mentioned training to unlock this dormant key alongside my existing abilities. When do we start? Belmod's thin lips curved in approval. I begin to see why Marcarita found you interesting. Shinobi, your conviction is refreshing. He gestured to Toppo. Take him to the training grounds. Begin with the fundamentals of key manipulation. I'm curious to see how quickly a master of chakra can adapt to our universal constants. As Toppo led Naruto from the pavilion, Marcarita remained behind with Belmod, both watching the shinobi's departure with calculated interest. You didn't tell him everything, Belmod observed once Naruto was out of earshot. No, Marcarita acknowledged. The connection between his specific lineage and the original Saiyan god prophecy seemed excessive information for a first meeting. Belmod chuckled, the sound carrying an edge of danger. Indeed, let's see if he can master basic ki before we burden him with the possibility that he might become something even gods have reason to fear. Marcarita's expression remained impassive, but her eyes followed Naruto's distant figure with something that might have been concern, an unusual sentiment for an angel attendant. His potential exceeds our projections, she noted. The ease with which he resisted your divine probe suggests his chakra system has already begun adapting to handle godly energy. A fascinating experiment unfolding before us, Belmod mused. Though I wonder if Universe 7's Hikaishin realizes what's emerging from his domain's forgotten experiment. Beerus has always been more concerned with cuisine than cosmic oversight, Marcarita replied with rare dry humor. Though his angel might take notice soon enough. On the training grounds, a vast floating platform ringed with strange crystalline structures, Naruto stood facing Toppo and 3 other Pride troopers. The gravity here felt heavier than on Earth, though not uncomfortably so. Key manipulation begins with understanding that energy exists both within and around you, Toppo explained, his massive hands cupped before him. A blue-white light began to glow between his palms. Unlike your chakra, which you generate internally, ki can be gathered from external sources as well. Naruto observed carefully, extending his senses to understand what Toppo was demonstrating. The ENRGY felt similar to natural energy in some ways, yet fundamentally different in others. In my world, we combine physical and spiritual energies to create chakra, Naruto explained. Sage mode adds natural energy to that mix, creating a balanced trio of forces. The female Pride trooper, introduced as Kokot, stepped forward. Interesting. Our ki draws from our life force and fighting spirit. Try to sense the energy within yourself first, without using your chakra system. Naruto closed his eyes, focusing inward. He was intimately familiar with his chakra network after years of training, but now he sought something deeper. More primal. Reaching past the warm glow of his chakra, past even Kurama's massive presence, he searched for the energy Belmod had reacted to. At first, nothing. Then, like finding a hidden spring beneath layers of earth, he sensed it, a different kind of power, dormant but present. It felt wild, responsive to emotion rather than the measured control chakra required. I think I found something, he murmured, concentrating on the unfamiliar energy. How do I bring it out? Emotion is the key for Saiyans, Toppo instructed. Particularly righteous anger or the desire to protect. Focus on a moment when your emotions were strongest. Naruto's mind immediately filled with memories. Jiraiya's death, Pain's invasion, the moment he'd learned of his parents' sacrifice. Powerful emotions surged through him, and with them, he felt the dormant energy stir. That's it, Kettle encouraged, monitoring readings on his device. His latent ki is responding to emotional stimuli. Naruto focused harder, drawing on the newfound energy while carefully keeping it separate from his chakra. A faint aura, different from his usual golden chakra, began to shimmer around him, tinged with blue. Remarkable, Toppo observed. First attempt, and already manifesting visible ki. Your Saiyan heritage may be diluted, but it responds readily. The effort of maintaining the unfamiliar energy was taxing. And after a few moments, Naruto released it, breathing heavily. It feels wild, different from chakra control. Ki responds to will and emotion more directly than your chakra appears to. Kokot explained. With practice, you'll develop finer control. Naruto nodded, already planning how to incorporate this new understanding into his training regimen. What about the transformations you mentioned? The ones Saiyans can achieve. Toppo exchanged glances with his fellow Pride troopers. Those require significant ki development and usually, a trigger event. Given your mixed heritage, it's uncertain whether you could achieve a full Super Saiyan transformation. However, Kettle added, examining his readings with interest, your unique energy constitution presents other possibilities. The interaction between ki and chakra could potentially create hybrid transformations unlike anything in either system. Naruto absorbed this information, mind racing with potential applications. And this training, mastering ki alongside chakra, will help my world adapt to reintegration. That's the theory, Toppo confirmed. If you can successfully harmonize both energy systems within yourself, you might provide a template for others to follow. At minimum, you would be able to help those with compatible constitutions make the transition. As the training session continued, Naruto found himself gradually sensing the flow of ki more clearly, not just within himself, but permeating the environment around him. It was similar to natural energy but more alive somehow. Responsive to consciousness in ways natural energy wasn't. Hours passed as he practiced the fundamentals of key manipulation under the Pride Trooper's guidance. By sunset, or what passed for unset in this strange realm, he had managed to produce a small sphere of pure ki between his palms, distinct from his usual Rasengan. Enough for today, Toppo finally announced. Your progress is commendable, but energy systems need time to adjust. Pushing too far too quickly could destabilize both your chakra and developing ki networks. Naruto released the energy, feeling the fatigue of sustained concentration. When do we return to my world? I should report what I've learned to the Hokage. Tomorrow. Marcarita's voice came from behind them. She had approached silently, observing the training session. Lord Belmont wishes to conduct one more examination before you return, to assess how your systems are adapting. She stepped closer, studying Naruto with that same clinical interest. Your progress with ki manipulation is exceptional, especially for one not born to it. Perhaps your experience with natural energy provides an advantageous foundation. It feels similar in some ways, Naruto acknowledged. Though ki seems more responsive to intention. An apt observation. Ki is indeed more directly connected to consciousness than your natural energy. She gestured toward a path leading away from the training grounds. Come, there are accommodations prepared for you. Rest is essential for proper energy integration. As they walked, Naruto found himself studying Marcarita with renewed curiosity. You're an angel, you said. What exactly does that mean in your universe? Angels serve as attendants and advisors to the gods of destruction, she explained. We are created by the Grand Priest to maintain cosmic balance and ensure the proper functioning of universal laws. Created, not born, Naruto asked, intrigued by this distinction. Something like amusement flickered in her otherworldly eyes. A philosophical distinction that varies by perspective. We are eternal beings with consciousness and purpose, though our existence differs from mortal life. They arrived at a small but elegant structure floating on its own platform, a guest residence of some kind. Inside, Naruto found furnishings that somehow managed to be both alien and familiar, arranged for comfort despite their unusual design. This will be your quarters while in our universe, Marcarita informed him. The environment adapts to provide suitable conditions for various life forms. Naruto set down his pack, feeling the subtle adjustment of temperature and air composition to match Earth-like conditions. Thank you. Before you go, there's something I've been wondering. Marcarita tilted her head slightly, waiting. Why me? Naruto asked directly. There must be others in my world with this Saiyan heritage you mentioned. Why focus on me specifically? For the first time, Marcarita seemed to consider her words carefully before speaking. The convergence of dimensions created energy signatures that drew our attention. Yours was by far the strongest, a beacon among countless smaller lights. She paused, then added. But there is more. Your specific energy composition, Saiyan heritage combined with your tailed beast partner and sage abilities, creates a unique resonance pattern. One that correlates with certain prophecies known to higher celestial beings. Prophecies, Naruto repeated flatly, familiar weariness creeping into his voice. I've had my fill of those. I imagine you have, Marcarita acknowledged, surprising him with this display of empathy. Rest assured, we are not basing our actions on ancient predictions alone. The dimensional crisis is very real, as is your potential to help address it. She turned to leave, then paused at the doorway. One piece of advice, if I may. When working with ki, don't try to control it as you do chakra. Ki responds better to guidance than domination, a partnership rather than a tool. With those words, she departed, leaving Naruto alone with his thoughts and the distant view of alien planets hanging in the purple-gold sky. Kurama, who had been unusually quiet during the training session, finally spoke. This place, these beings, they exist on a scale beyond what even I had imagined. You've been sensing something, haven't you? Naruto asked, settling onto a cushioned surface that served as a bed. Since we arrived, memories that aren't quite mine, the fox admitted. When the sage of X paths created us tailed beasts from the 10 tails, he gave us consciousness but also fragments of something older, knowledge without context. Being here, it's like finding missing pieces to a puzzle I didn't know existed. Naruto considered this revelation. The 10 tails was Kagaia's transformed state. And now we learn Kagaia had connections to these cosmic beings. The implication behind that we tailed beasts carry echoes of something from beyond our dimensional pocket, Kurama concluded. Something connected to these gods and angels. They fell into contemplative silence, both processing the expanding scale of reality they now faced. Eventually, Naruto spoke again. What do you think of Marcarita? Can we trust her? Kurama's response was measured. She hasn't lied, but she's certainly not revealing everything. These beings operate with longer perspectives than even I can comprehend. Their help will always serve their own cosmic agenda first. So we proceed with caution, Naruto summarized. Learn what we can, master this key, if possible, but remember our priority is protecting our world. As always, Kurama agreed. Though I admit, I'm curious to see what happens when you fully integrate these different energy types. The potential is intriguing. Naruto smiled slightly, gazing out at the alien sky. That makes two of us. As he drifted toward sleep, his mind filled with images of swirling energies and new possibilities. Tomorrow would bring more training, more revelations, and eventually a return to his world to share what he'd learned. Whatever cosmic game these beings were playing, whatever prophecies they believed in, Naruto remained focused on the fundamental truth that had guided him all his life, protecting those precious to him. No matter what challenges arose, even ones from beyond the stars. Chapter 1 End Chapter 2, Awakening the Saiyan Within. Gravity crushed against Naruto's shoulders like an invisible mountain, compressing his lungs and straining muscles unaccustomed to such pressure. Sweat beaded across his forehead as he struggled to maintain proper form, arms extended, palms upturned, focus unwavering. Despite the unnatural weight pulling at every cell. 200 times Earth's gravity, Kettle announced dispassionately, monitoring readings from the control panel. Most non-Saiyan species lose consciousness at 50. The training chamber, a massive spherical room within the Pride Troopers' headquarters, hummed with energy as gravity simulators pushed Naruto's body to its limits. 3 days had passed since his arrival in Universe 11, each hour filled with increasingly demanding exercises designed to awaken dormant Saiyan abilities. His vitals remained stable, Kokot observed, her tone betraying a hint of surprise. Impressive adaptation rate. Toppo crossed massive arms across his chest, mustache twitching as he studied Naruto's form. The Uzumaki life force combined with the Enchiriki constitution provides substantial physical resilience. But physical endurance alone won't activate Saiyan transformation pathways. Naruto closed his eyes, focusing inward as he'd been taught. The crushing gravity served a dual purpose, physically stressing his body while forcing him to draw on deeper energy reserves. Beneath the familiar warmth of his chakra network and Kurama's massive presence, he could now consistently sense that other energy, wild, responsive, yet untamed. He flows differently from chakra, he murmured, words strained by effort. Not through fixed pathways, but everywhere at once. Correct, Toppo confirmed. Chakra follows predetermined channels in your body, what you call the chakra network. He permeates every cell independently, allowing for more comprehensive physical enhancement when properly channeled. With deliberate effort, Naruto directed his attention away from his chakra system, focusing instead on the dormant ki. The sensation resembled sage mode in some ways, that feeling of drawing on something both external and internal simultaneously, but with key differences. Natural energy existed passively. He seemed almost alive, responsive to emotion and will in ways natural energy wasn't. A faint blue aura flickered around him, struggling against the crushing gravity. He's doing it, Kettle reported, eyes fixed on his monitoring device. Pure ki manifestation, separate from his chakra network. The blue aura strengthened slightly, pushing back against the oppressive force. For a moment, Naruto felt lighter, the gravity's burden diminishing as ki reinforced his cellular structure. Then, as quickly as it had come, the sensation vanished. The blue aura dissipated, and the full weight of 200 G crashed down upon him once more. Naruto dropped to one knee, breathing heavily. Enough, Toppo commanded, signaling Kettle to deactivate the gravity simulator. As the pressure gradually returned to normal, he approached Naruto. Your progress continues to exceed expectations. Few manage conscious ki manipulation within their first week of training. Rising shakily to his feet, Naruto wiped sweat from his brow. It's still not enough. The energy responds momentarily but won't sustain. Ki requires different mental pathways than your chakra system, Kokot explained, offering a towel and hydration capsule. You've spent decades developing chakra control. Ki manipulation will take time to become equally instinctive. Naruto accepted both items gratefully. The hydration capsule, a marvel of Universe 11 technology, dissolved on his tongue, instantly replenishing lost fluids throughout his body. Time might be something my world doesn't have much of, he reminded them. Based on Marcarita's projections, the dimensional convergence accelerates daily. Toppo's expression remained stern but not unkind. All the more reason to ensure your training is effective rather than merely exhaustive. You require rest. We will resume tomorrow with combat applications. Though part of him wanted to protest, Naruto recognized the wisdom in Toppo's words. The Pride Trooper leader had proven to be a demanding but insightful instructor, pushing Naruto's limits while ensuring his development followed a sustainable path. As the training chamber doors hissed open, Naruto was surprised to find Marcarita waiting in the corridor beyond. The angel attendant's expression remained characteristically composed, though Naruto had begun to recognize subtle variations in her seemingly impassive demeanor. Marcarita, Toppo acknowledged with formal respect. We were just concluding today's session. So I observed, she replied, her gaze shifting to Naruto. Lord Belmod requests an update on our visitor's progress. I'll escort him to the observation deck. Toppo nodded, exchanging brief reports with Kettle before departing with Kokot toward the Pride Troopers' command center. Left alone with Marcarita, Naruto found himself studying her with renewed curiosity. During his short time in Universe 11, the angel had remained a constant yet enigmatic presence, offering guidance without fully revealing her thoughts. You're progressing faster than anticipated, she observed as they walked through the station's curved corridors, particularly in separating ki manipulation from your chakra system. It's still not enough, Naruto replied, frustration edging his voice. I can feel the ki responding, but sustaining it independently from chakra remains difficult. Marcarita tilted her head slightly. Perhaps you're approaching the problem from an unnecessarily restrictive perspective. Meaning, the Pride Troopers train you as they would any ki novice, treating chakra and ki as separate, potentially competing systems. Her staff tapped rhythmically against the floor as they walked. But your unique constitution might benefit from a more integrated approach. Naruto considered her words. You're suggesting I shouldn't try to separate the energies, but find ways to use them in tandem. I'm merely observing that unprecedented situations often require unconventional solutions. Marcarita's tone remained neutral, but something in her eyes suggested deeper interest. History is written by those who reject established limitations. Before Naruto could respond, they reached the observation deck, a vast chamber with transparent walls offering breathtaking views of Universe 11. Planets of impossible colors orbited distant stars, while cosmic phenomena painted the void with blues, purples, and colors Naruto had no names for. At the center of the chamber stood Belmod, hands clasped behind his back as he gazed outward. Ah, our dimensional visitor, the god of destruction greeted without turning. Toppo, reports promising developments in your training. Naruto approached, standing beside Belmod at the viewport. I've made progress accessing ki, but mastery remains distant. Mastery is always distant, even for gods. Belmod replied with unexpected philosophical depth. What matters is whether your progress outpaces the convergence of dimensions. He turned then, studying Naruto with calculating eyes. 3 days ago, you couldn't sense ki at all. Today, you manipulated it consciously under extreme gravitational stress. By mortal standards, that's remarkable advancement. But is it enough? Naruto asked directly. Will it help my world adapt to the dimensional changes? Belmod's painted lips curved slightly. That remains to be seen. Tomorrow, we test your progress more practically. He gestured toward a distant sector of space where a faint distortion was visible even from their position. The dimensional boundary near your world continues to thin. Soon, we'll return there to assess changes on both sides of the convergence. Has there been any indication of who or what might be accelerating the process? Naruto asked. Marcarita mentioned the convergence was happening naturally but faster than expected. Belmont and Marcarita exchanged one of their cryptic glances before the god of destruction responded. We've detected energy signatures suggesting deliberate interference. Someone or something with considerable power is attempting to hasten the reintegration of your dimensional pocket. To what end? That, Belmont replied ominously, is the concerning question. Dimensional reintegration, when forced rather than natural, often results in catastrophic energy release, the kind that ambitious entities might seek to harness. Naruto processed this information, connecting it with his knowledge of those who had sought power throughout shinobi history. The Otsutsuki. It fits their pattern, searching for new energy sources to consume. A reasonable hypothesis, Marcarita acknowledged. Though the signature we've detected doesn't match known Otsutsuki energy patterns. Belmont turned back to the viewport, his reflection ghost-like against the cosmic backdrop. Regardless of who orchestrates this acceleration, your world's preparation remains the priority. Tomorrow's training will focus on combat application of your developing abilities. If you can successfully channel ki alongside chakra in battle conditions, you'll have taken a significant step toward creating a viable adaptation pathway. Recognizing the dismissal in Belmont's tone, Naruto nodded respectfully before following Marcarita from the observation deck. As they walked through the station's corridors toward his assigned quarters, a question that had been forming in his mind finally found voice. The dimensional barrier between our worlds, was it created solely to isolate an experiment, or was there another purpose? Marcarita's pace slowed almost imperceptibly. What prompts this line of inquiry? Something doesn't align with the explanation I've been given, Naruto replied. If the shinobi world was merely an experimental dimension for testing chakra development, why maintain its isolation for thousands of years? Surely the experiment would have yielded results long ago. For the first time since their meeting, Marcarita's composed expression showed a flicker of genuine surprise, quickly masked. But not before Naruto caught it. Your perception exceeds expectations, she noted after a moment. You're correct that there were additional considerations behind your world's isolation. They reached a viewing alcove overlooking the Pride Troopers' docking bay, where ships of various configurations were being serviced by automated systems. Marcarita paused, seeming to contemplate how much to reveal. The creation of your dimensional pocket coincided with a period of significant conflict among divine hierarchies, she finally explained. What history records as Kagaya Otsutsuki's arrival on your world was actually the culmination of a much larger cosmic disagreement regarding the development of mortal species. Her staff created a small holographic display showing a timeline of events. Certain divine entities believed mortal races should develop power gradually, over millions of years of evolution. Others advocated for more accelerated approaches, like giving humans access to chakra. Naruto surmised. Precisely. The Otsutsuki clan served as intermediaries between divine factions, but some members developed their own ambitions. Kagaya was among those who saw potential for personal advancement in these experimental energies. The hologram shifted to show a stylized representation of Kagaya consuming the chakra fruit. What your history's record is her claiming the god tree's power was actually the activation of a divine catalyst designed to speed chakra development across an entire population. By consuming it herself, she redirected that potential into a single vessel. Creating the first chakra user, Naruto murmured. But what does this have to do with Saiyans? How did their DNA end up in my world? Marcarita dispelled the hologram with a gesture. The dimensional pocket wasn't created empty. Various species were introduced to create a balanced ecosystem, including a small contingent of early Saiyans, selected for their adaptive genetics and compatibility with the experimental chakra system. Why Saiyans specifically? They possessed certain genetic markers that made them ideal candidates for chakra adaptation. Their natural ki manipulation abilities, combined with their evolutionary adaptability, created a foundation upon which chakra could be successfully grafted. Naruto absorbed this information, mind racing with implications. And the Uzumaki clan, was there a connection? Something changed in Marcarita's expression, a subtle softening that might have been sympathy. Your clan's distinctive vitality and special chakra weren't coincidental. The Uzumaki were direct descendants of the original Saiyan settlers, though countless generations of integration with other populations diluted the genetic markers significantly. The revelation struck Naruto with unexpected force. Throughout his life, pieces of his identity had been revealed gradually: his status as a Jinchuriki, his parentage, his connection to the Uzumaki clan, and through them to Asura Otsutsuki. Each revelation had expanded his understanding of himself and his place in the world. Now, standing in an alien space station in another universe, he discovered yet another layer to his heritage. That's why I can sense and manipulate ki more easily than expected, he realized. The potential was always there, just dormant. Indeed, Marcarita confirmed. Though your Saiyan heritage is distant enough that developing full Saiyan abilities would normally remain impossible. She hesitated before adding, however, your unique circumstances, particularly your Jinchuriki status and sage abilities, have created unusual possibilities. Before Naruto could ask for clarification, an alert chimed through the station's communication system. Marcarita glanced upward, listening to information inaudible to Naruto. It appears we have unexpected visitors, she stated, her usual composure returning. Representatives from Universe 6 have arrived, requesting an audience with Lord Belmont. Universe 6, Naruto questioned. What does that mean for our plans? It means, Marcarita replied with the faintest hint of what might have been amusement, that your training may accelerate in unexpected ways. Universe 6 contains the largest remaining population of pure-blooded Saiyans in the multiverse. The meeting chamber hummed with barely contained tension. Naruto stood to one side of Belmod's elevated seat, observing the delegation from Universe 6 with cautious interest. Their leader, a tall, slender alien with pale blue skin and an elaborate staff similar to Marcarita's, conducted herself with refined dignity. Beside her stood a diminutive figure with purple skin and large pointed ears, wearing ornate clothing that marked him as someone of importance. Most intriguing to Naruto, however, were the two figures flanking these leaders. Both appeared similar to humans, though with distinct features that set them apart. The male was tall and lean with dark hair and a perpetual scowl. The female was shorter, with spiky black hair and fierce eyes that surveyed everything with combative assessment. Lord Champa, Belmod greeted he purple-skinned figure with formal courtesy that barely masked underlying rivalry. This visit is unexpected. Don't act so surprised, Belmod, Champa retorted, his voice high-pitched compared to his counterpart. When dimensional anomalies start appearing, gods of destruction take notice. Especially when those anomalies connect to Universe 7. The blue-skinned woman, whom Naruto assumed was Champa's angel attendant, stepped forward with graceful precision. What Lord Champa means to convey is our concern regarding the accelerating convergence between dimensions. Our projections suggest potential repercussions across multiple universes. Your concern is noted, Vados, Marcarita replied coolly. Though one wonders why Universe 6 takes such interest in a dimensional pocket historically connected to Universe 7. Champa snorted inelegantly. Because my lazy brother is too busy sampling Earth cuisine to investigate properly. Besides, his gaze shifted to Naruto. Our Saiyans detected something interesting. The female Saiyan stepped forward without waiting for permission, her movement brash and confident. Dark eyes assessed Naruto with unconcealed skepticism. This is him, the one with Saiyan energy signatures. She circled Naruto like a predator evaluating potential prey. Doesn't look like much. His power level is all over the place, unrefined, undisciplined. Caulifla, Vados admonished gently. Perhaps introductions before evaluations. The Saiyan woman, Caulifla, shrugged unapologetically. Fine, I'm Caulifla, strongest female Saiyan of Universe 6. And I'm not impressed by whatever mixed blood experiment you've got here. Rather than taking offense, Naruto found himself amused by her directness. It reminded him of his younger self, brash, confrontational, perpetually ready to prove himself. Naruto Uzumaki, he introduced himself with a slight bow. Shinobi of Konohagakure, Jinchuriki of Kurama the Nine-Tailed Fox, and apparently, distant descendant of Saiyans I never knew existed until a few days ago. Caulifla's eyebrow raised at his equally direct response. At least you're honest about your ignorance. That's something. The male Saiyan stepped forward, his expression remaining serious. I am Kaba, a member of the Sadala Defense Forces. Our universe's Saiyans evolved differently from Universe 7's, developing as protectors rather than conquerors. Belmod leaned forward in his seat. While these introductions are fascinating, they don't explain your presence in my universe, Lord Champa. Champa waved a pudgy hand dismissively. Like I said, dimensional anomalies. Our Saiyans detected unusual energy fluctuations, Saiyan key signatures where none should exist. When Vados traced them to Universe 11, well, my curiosity was piqued. Curiosity, Belmod repeated skeptically. Nothing to do with potential advantages in our ongoing competitions. Speaking of competitions, Caulifla interjected, attention still fixed on Naruto. I want to see what this supposed Saiyan descendant can do. A little sparring match should be enlightening. Toppo, who had remained silent near Belmod's seat, stepped forward. Naruto Uzumaki is currently engaged in specialized training critical to his world's survival. Exhibition matches would be an unnecessary distraction. On the contrary, Marcarita intervened unexpectedly. A practical application of his developing abilities against a pure-blooded Saiyan might provide valuable data. Theory and controlled exercises can only advance his progress so far. Belmod studied his angel attend, and with subtle surprise before nodding slowly. Marcarita raises a valid point. Seeing how his emerging ki responds to Saiyan combat stimuli could accelerate his development. Naruto's eyes narrowed slightly as he observed this exchange. Something unspoken passed between the deities, an agenda beyond what was being openly discussed. Nevertheless, the opportunity to test his progress against a full-blooded Saiyan was too valuable to decline. I accept the challenge, he stated, meeting Caulifla's fierce gaze. Though I should warn you, shinobi fight differently than whatever you're used to. Caulifla's lips curved in a predatory smile. Good. Predictable opponents are boring. The combat arena aboard the Pride Troopers station consisted of a circular platform surrounded by energy barriers designed to contain even the most destructive techniques. Naruto stood at one end, rolling his shoulders to loosen muscles still adjusting to Universe 11's gravity. Across from him, Caulifla made cursory stretches with the casual confidence of someone who relied more on instinct than preparation. Observing from elevated positions around the arena, the assembled deities and Pride Troopers created an audience unlike any Naruto had performed for previously. Most intriguing was the contrast between Marcarita and Vados. Both angels maintained perfect composure, yet subtle differences in the IR attention revealed distinct interests in the outcome. Standard exhibition rules, Toppo announced from the referee position. Combat continues until submission, incapacitation, or my intervention. Lethal techniques are prohibited. Begin when ready. Caulifla wasted no time, launching herself forward with explosive speed. Her fighting style proved direct and aggressive, no feints, no misdirection. Just overwhelming power and velocity. Naruto sidestepped her initial assault, analyzing her movement patterns while maintaining defensive positioning. Stop dodging and fight, she demanded, unleashing a barrage of punches that cut through the air with whistling intensity. Naruto continued evading, each movement precise and economical. A shinobi observes before engaging, he replied calmly. First lesson of combat. Frustration flickered across Caulifla's features. Her attacks accelerated, forcing Naruto to increase his evasive speed. One punch grazed his shoulder, and the impact, even from this glancing blow, reverberated through his body with surprising force. Saiyans get stronger during battle, Kaba called from the sidelines. Prolonged defensive tactics only work against you. Recognizing the truth in this assessment, Naruto shifted strategies. As Caulifla launched her next assault, he channeled chakra throughout his body in the familiar pattern of enhancement. Rather than dodging, he met her attack directly, blocking her strike with his forearm. The collision generated a shockwave that rippled through the arena. Caulifla's eyes widened in surprise at the resistance. Not bad for a hybrid, she acknowledged, leaping back to reassess. But that's not Saiyan ki you're using. That's your chakra stuff. I'm still learning to access both, Naruto admitted, settling into a balanced stance. Perhaps you could demonstrate proper ki utilization. Caulifla's response was immediate and dramatic. With a sharp cry, she summoned her power, a brilliant aura of blue-white energy erupting around her form. The transformation was less dramatic than Naruto's various chakra modes, but the raw power emanating from her compact form impressed even him. "This is basic ki manipulation," she explained, voice resonating with newly amplified energy. "The foundation of all Saiyan combat techniques." Without warning, she extended her palm and released a concentrated beam of energy. Naruto barely had time to counter, instinctively channeling chakra to create a defensive barrier. The ki blast collided with his defense, pushing him backward despite his anchoring stance. "Energy projection without hand signs," he observed, analyzing the technique. "Faster deployment but less precision than jutsu. Stop analyzing and start fighting," Caulifla demanded, frustration evident. "Show me this Saiyan heritage you supposedly carry." Her provocation triggered something within Naruto, not anger exactly, but a competitive spirit he hadn't felt since his rivalrous days with Sasuke. Closing his eyes briefly, he reached for that deeper energy he'd been cultivating during training, the dormant ki that responded to emotion rather than calculated control. As he had in the gravity chamber, Naruto managed to manifest a faint blue aura distinct from his usual golden chakra. Unlike previous attempts, however, he didn't try to separate the energies completely. Instead, following Marcarita's earlier suggestion, he allowed them to exist simultaneously, distinct yet harmonized. Caulifla paused, sensing the shift. "That's more like it. Not pure Saiyan ki, but closer." "I'm not trying to be a pure Saiyan," Naruto responded, feeling the dual energies stabilizing within him. "I'm finding my own balance." With newfound confidence, he moved on the offensive. His fighting style blended shinobi techniques with the raw power enhancement of ki, creating a hybrid approach that seemed to confuse Caulifla's combat instincts. Where she expected direct confrontation, he employed misdirection. When she prepared for evasion, he engaged directly. The exchange of blows accelerated, both combatants adjusting to each other's patterns. Caulifla's pure power and combat instinct proved formidable, while Naruto's strategic adaptability and chakra techniques created unexpected challenges for her. "You fight weird," she commented during a momentary separation, genuine interest replacing her initial dismissiveness. "But not ineffectively. Different worlds, different methods," Naruto replied, maintaining his dual energy state with increasing comfort. "Though I'm curious about something you mentioned, Super Saiyan transformation. How does that work?" Caulifla's expression shifted to pride mixed with excitement. "You want to see a real transformation? Fine." The energy surrounding her intensified dramatically. With a shout that seemed to shake the arena itself, Caulifla's power exploded outward. Her black hair transformed to brilliant gold, standing upright with newly rigid structure. Her eyes shifted from dark to teal, radiating power that was palpable even across the distance separating them. "This is Super Saiyan," she announced, her voice carrying harmonic overtones of power. "The legendary transformation of our race." The sheer energy output stunned Naruto. While he'd witnessed and experienced remarkable transformations throughout his life, from Jinchuriki 4 Ms to Sage Mode, the Super Saiyan state possessed a distinctive quality unlike anything in his experience. The ki radiating from Caulifla existed in a different category of power, simultaneously more primal and more refined than chakra-based transformations. "Impressive," he acknowledged genuinely. "The energy signature is similar to Six Paths Sage Mode in some ways, but the cellular activation pattern seems completely different." Caulifla blinked, momentarily thrown by his analytical response. "You're supposed to be intimidated, not taking notes." Without warning, she launched forward with dramatically increased speed, crossing the arena faster than most eyes could track. Her fist connected with Naruto's guard, the impact sending him skidding backward despite his reinforced stance. "The power increase is substantial," he observed, adjusting his defensive positioning. "Not just strength and speed, but energy projection capabilities as well." "Stop talking and start transforming," Caulifla demanded, unleashing a barrage of attacks that forced Naruto into increasingly complex evasive patterns. "Show me your Saiyan potential, if you actually have any." Each impact reverberated through Naruto's body, pushing his defensive capabilities to their limits. Even with chakra reinforcement, the raw power behind Caulifla's Super Saiyan enhanced strikes threatened to overwhelm his guard. Pure defensive tactics would eventually fail against her sustained assault. Within him, Kurama stirred. Her transformation resonates with something familiar. The emotional catalyst, the energy G nature. There are parallels to your parents' chakra that I never recognized before. This observation struck Naruto with unexpected clarity. His mother's special chakra, his father's flying thunder, God technique. Both had contained elements that, in retrospect, might have reflected their distant Saiyan heritage. The way Kushina's chakra manifested physically, the extraordinary speed and reflexes Minato displayed. These weren't just advanced chakra techniques but potentially expressions of dormant genetic potential. As this realization formed, memories cascaded through Naruto's consciousness, not just of his own experiences, but inherited memories passed through generations of Uzumaki DNA. Flashes of ancestors he'd never known, techniques lost to time, and beneath it all, a primal power that predated chakra itself. The Uzumaki weren't just talented with sealing techniques, he murmured, pieces connecting in his mind. Their vitality, their special chakra, it wasn't just chakra at all. It was the remnants of Saiyan ki, expressed through a chakra framework. Caulifla pressed her advantage, unleashing a particularly powerful combination that broke through Naruto's guard. Her fist connected solidly with his midsection, driving air from his lungs and sending him tumbling across the arena floor. "Is that all you've got?" she taunted, golden aura flaring around her. "Some Saiyan descendant you turned out to be. All analysis, no instinct." The impact in her words triggered something deep within Naruto, not anger in the conventional sense, but a fusion of determination and primo RDIAL instinct that resonated with both his shinobi training and newly awakened Saiyan heritage. As he rose to his feet, he felt something shift fundamentally within his energy system. Instead of trying to replicate Caulifla's transformation exactly, Naruto allowed his unique constitution to guide the process. Chakra and ki began to synchronize rather than compete, creating harmonics that amplified both energies simultaneously. His usual golden chakra cloak appeared first, enveloping him in familiar radiance. But beneath it, visible as blue undertones within the gold, his awakening Saiyan ki provided new structural support. "What is this?" Caulifla demanded, sensing the unusual energy pattern. "That's not Super Saiyan. It's something different." Naruto felt his perception expanding. Similar to Sage Mode but with heightened awareness of energy rather than natural forces. His hair remained primarily unchanged, though with subtle golden highlights appearing throughout the blonde. Most significantly, his eyes transformed, the usual Sage Mode pattern overlaid with teal irises reminiscent of Super Saiyan transformation. "Not Super Saiyan," he agreed, voice resonating with newfound power. "Something new, chakra and ki working in concert rather than isolation." Caulifla studied him with newfound interest. "Hybrid transformation for a hybrid Saiyan. Let's see what it can do." Our renewed clash generated shockwaves that tested the arena's containment barriers. Naruto discovered his hybrid state offered unique advantages, the raw power amplification of ki combined with the precise control and versatility of chakra. Where pure Super Saiyan transformation sacrificed some fine control for overwhelming power, his integrated approach maintained tactical flexibility while substantially increasing his physical capabilities. Most surprisingly, he found this hybrid state allowed him to utilize techniques from both systems simultaneously. A Rasengan formed in his palm, but with ki integration that enhanced its rotational force beyond conventional limits. When Caulifla countered with an energy blast, Naruto's shadow clones, now enhanced with ki reinforcement, moved with unprecedented speed and resilience. From the observation platforms, the assembled deities watched with varying reactions. Champa appeared grudgingly impressed, while Belmod maintained calculating observation. Most intriguing were the angels. Vados and Marcarita exchanged glances that suggested significant unspoken communication. "Fascinating adaptation," Vados commented, her tone revealing genuine interest. "The integration of distinct energy systems into a functional hybrid state. Most unexpected." Marcarita nodded slightly. "The convergence within mirrors the convergence without. Patterns repeating across scales." Below, the combat intensified as both participants pushed their respective transformations to higher levels. Caulifla, recognizing that raw power alone wouldn't secure victory against Naruto's adaptive approach, began incorporating more sophisticated techniques, energy feints, after-image movements, and concentrated power impacts. Naruto countered with increasingly creative applications of his hybrid transformation. When Caulifla unleashed a particularly powerful energy wave, he didn't just dodge, he channeled the principles of his father's Flying Thunder God technique, enhanced by Ki's cellular reinforcement, to seemingly phase through the attack entirely. Impossible, Caulifla exclaimed. That wasn't instantaneous movement, but it wasn't standard speed either. Something in between, Naruto explained, appearing behind her with preternatural fluidity. My father developed a space-time technique using chakra. With Ki integration, it seems the principles can be applied more intuitively. Their exchange continued, each combatant discovering new aspects of their abilities through the challenge the other presented. For Naruto, the experience proved transformative. Not just in terms of power development, but in understanding the true nature of his heritage and potential. After a particularly explosive exchange that left both fighters breathing heavily at opposite ends of the arena, Toppo stepped forward. Sufficient demonstration, he declared, raising a massive hand. Both participants have displayed exemplary abilities. This exhibition is concluded. Caulifla's Super Saiyan aura flared with momentary frustration before she allowed the transformation to subside, her hair returning to its natural black state. Just when it was getting interesting, Naruto likewise released his hybrid transformation, though with noticeable reluctance as the harmonized energies had felt remarkably natural once established. Thank you for the challenge. It was educational. Not bad for a hybrid, Caulifla acknowledged, approaching with newfound respect in her expression. Your techniques are weird, but effective. This chakra system has some advantages I hadn't considered. Before Naruto could respond, the deities descended from their observation platforms. Champa waddled forward, studying Naruto with newly awakened interest. Well, seems Biru's little dimensional experiment produced something interesting after all. He poked Naruto's shoulder experimentally. Stable energy integration between systems that should theoretically conflict. Unusual, very unusual. Belmod stepped forward, subtly interposing himself between Champa and Naruto. The implications extend beyond mere combat applications. This successful integration suggests a potential pathway for the shinobi world's adaptation to dimensional convergence. Vados nodded thoughtfully. Indeed, if individuals with compatible heritage can serve as templates for broader population adjustment, the catastrophic failure scenarios become less probable. The question remains, Marcarita interjected, whether sufficient compatible individuals exist within the shinobi dimension to establish viable transition pathways before convergence completes. Naruto, listening to this discussion of his world's fate with growing concern, stepped forward. There must be others with similar heritage. The Uzumaki clan was scattered but not extinguished. If I can identify those with compatible genetics. A reasonable approach, Vados agreed. Though time constraints remain significant. Based on current projections, dimensional reintegration will reach critical threshold within approximately 3 months by your world's time measurement. Then we should return immediately, Naruto stated firmly. I've learned enough to begin identifying others with compatible constitutions. Every day matters. Belmod and Champa exchanged glances, an unusual moment of accord between rival destroyers. The situation warrants coordinated response, Belmod acknowledged reluctantly. Lord Champa, would you permit your Saiyans to assist in this effort? Their expertise regarding Ki manifestation could prove valuable. Champa rubbed his chin thoughtfully. Well, I suppose I could spare Caulifla and Kaba for this little project. Purely for multiversal stability, of course, not because I'm helping your universe or anything. Of course not, Belmod replied dryly. Caulifla stepped forward, excitement evident in her expression. I'm definitely going. A whole dimension of potential Saiyan descendants. Count me in. Kaba joined her, his demeanor more reserved but interest clear. The Sadala Defense Forces would consider this a priority mission. If an entire dimension faces potential destruction, our assistance is warranted. Naruto felt unexpected gratitude toward these strangers from another universe. Despite their different origins and motivations, their willingness to help reinforced his belief in cooperation across boundaries, a principle that had guided him throughout his life. We leave tomorrow, Belmod declared. Marcarita and I will escort Naruto and the Universe 6 Saiyans to the convergence point. Toppo, Prepare the Pride Troopers for potential intervention if dimensional instabilities increase. As the gathering dispersed to make preparations, Marcarita approached Naruto privately. Your performance exceeded projections, she stated, her tone maintaining its usual precision though with subtle undertones Naruto was learning to recognize as approval. The hybrid transformation was unexpected, he admitted. It felt right somehow, more natural than trying to separate the energies. Integration rather than isolation, Marcarita observed. A philosophy with broader applications, perhaps. Quote, her gaze held his for a moment longer than strictly necessary before she continued. There is something you should know before we return to your world. The N-G signature we detected manipulating the convergence, we've identified certain characteristics consistent with divine energy. Divine, like the gods of destruction. Similar in classification, different in application. The signature contains elements reminiscent of destroyer energy but modified in ways that suggest experimentation. The implication sent a chill through Naruto. Someone's experimenting with god-level powers near my world. So it would appear, Marcarita confirmed. Which makes your successful energy integration more significant than merely personal development. They demonstrated the capacity to harmonize seemingly incompatible energy types, a rare ability that may prove essential in confronting whatever awaits. With those cryptic words, she departed, leaving Naruto to contemplate the expanding scope of challenges facing his world. What had begun as a mysterious aurora had evolved into a multiversal crisis involving gods, dimensions, and powers beyond anything in shinobi history. In his quarters that evening, Naruto sat in meditative posture, exploring the internal changes wrought by his hybrid transformation. The experience against Caulifla had accelerated his development dramatically, providing practical application that theoretical training alone couldn't match. The female Saiyan served as an effective catalyst, Kurama observed. Her co-MBAT pressure forced adaptations that might have taken months through conventional training. It wasn't just the combat, Naruto replied thoughtfully. It was recognizing the connections, seeing how Saiyan attributes might have expressed themselves through Uzumaki bloodlines for generations. He extended his hand, summoning the dual energies he'd harmonized during battle. Golden chakra intertwined with blue ki, creating a swirling pattern that reflected their synchronized nature. Unlike his previous attempts at ki manipulation, the integrated approach felt sustainable, each energy system porting rather than competing with the other. There's something else, Kurama noted, his tone contemplative. During your transformation, I sensed resonance with my own energies. As though your Saiyan awakening somehow harmonized with my chakra as well. This observation intrigued Naruto. The tailed beasts were created from the 10 tails, originally Kagaya transformed. And Kagaya ha-D connections to the divine hierarchy that created these dimensional separations, suggesting my existence might have been intended as part of this grand experiment all along, Kurama concluded. An unpleasant thought. Or perhaps an opportunity, Naruto countered. If your chakra can harmonize with both human chakra and Saiyan ki, you might represent another pathway for adaptation. Their conversation was interrupted by a chime at the door. When it slid open, Naruto was surprised to find Caulifla standing there, arms crossed and expression contemplative. Got a minute? She asked without preamble. There's something I want to discuss before we head to your dimension tomorrow. Naruto gestured for her to enter. Unlike many of his peers, he'd never been particularly concerned with formalities or social awkwardness. What's on your mind? Caulifla paced the room with restless energy before turning to face him directly. That transformation you did, it wasn't like anything I've seen before. Not pure Super Saiyan, not whatever your normal power-up is, but something new. A hybrid approach, Naruto confirmed. Integrating chakra and ki rather than choosing between them. That's just it, she continued. Excitement breaking through her usual bravado. I've been working on mastering Super Saiyan transformations for years, pushing the boundaries of what's possible. But watching you combine completely different energy systems made me realize I've been thinking too narrowly. She demonstrated by summoning her ki, the blue-white aura flowing around her hand. We, Saiyans tend to focus exclusively on pushing our ki to higher levels, Super Saiyan 2, and so on. But your approach suggests lateral development might be just as valuable as linear progression. Naruto nodded, understanding her perspective. In my world, the most powerful techniques often come from combining seemingly unrelated approaches. My Rasenshuriken integrated shape and nature. Transformation in ways previously thought impossible. Exactly, Caulifla exclaimed. So here's what I'm proposing. Knowledge exchange. I help you refine your Saiyan abilities, you teach me about T's chakra system and how to potentially integrate new elements into my transformations. The suggestion surprised Naruto, though pleasantly so. He'd expected continued rivalry from the proud Saiyan, not collaborative proposals. I'd be happy to share what I know, he agreed. Though chakra development typically requires years of training from childhood, it might not be something you can simply adopt. Caulifla waved dismissively. Details. Saiyans are adaptive by nature, it's how we survive and evolve. If there's potential advantage in this chakra system, I'll find a way to incorporate elements of it. Her confidence reminded Naruto of his younger self, determined to master techniques regardless of conventional limitations or timeframes. We can start tomorrow during the journey to my world. The dimensional crossing provides unique energy conditions that might facilitate understanding. Satisfied with this arrangement, Caulifla nodded briskly. Good. And one more thing. That deity tall. About. Divine energy signatures and experimentation. I've seen enough universal conflicts to recognize when gods aren't telling mortals everything. You caught that too, Naruto observed. Arita mentioned the energy signature contains modified destroyer elements. That suggests someone with access to divine knowledge is involved. Which means we're not just dealing with natural phenomena but potentially a deliberate threat. Caulifla's expression turned serious. If someone's manipulating dimensional boundaries for power harvesting, they won't stop voluntarily. The assessment aligned with Naruto's own concerns. Throughout shinobi history, those seeking power rarely acknowledged boundaries, ethical, physical, or dimensional. Whether Madara, Pain, or Kagaya herself, the pattern remained consistent. Pursuit of power regardless of consequences. Then we prepare accordingly, he stated simply. Not just for dimensional adaptation, but for potential conflict with whoever's accelerating the convergence. Caulifla grinned, combat excitement evident in her expression. Now you're talking like a Saiyan. Find the strongest opponent and challenge them directly. Despite the gravity of their situation, Naruto found himself smiling at her enthusiasm. The Universe 6 Saiyans had evolved as protectors rather than conquerors, developing a warrior culture directed toward defense rather than domination. In many ways, their philosophy aligned with the will of fire that guided Konoha's shinobi. Get some rest, he advised as she turned to leave. Tomorrow begins a new phase for both our worlds. After Caulifla departed, Naruto returned to his meditation, processing the day's developments. The hybrid transformation had opened new pathways for his development, neither purely shinobi nor purely Saiyan, but something uniquely his own. If this integration could serve as a template for others with compatible heritage, perhaps his world's transition could proceed without the catastrophic scenarios the deities feared. Yet questions remained unanswered. Who was manipulating the dimensional convergence? What connection existed between the ancient experiments that created the shinobi world and current events? And what role did prophecy play in Marcarita's interest in his development? As sleep finally claimed him, Naruto's dreams filled with fragmented images, Golden Wario. RS with transformations beyond what Caulifla had demonstrated, ancient battles between gods and mortals, and throughout it all, a persistent aurora of energy connecting worlds that should have remained separate. Morning arrived with an atmosphere of focused preparation. The Pride Troopers station buzzed with activity as arrangements for the interdimensional expedition finalized. Naruto found himself in a briefing chamber with Belmod, Marcarita, Champa, Vados, and the Universe 6 Saiyans. The dimensional tear has stabilized sufficiently for directed transit, Marcarita explained, her staff projecting a map of energy fluctuations surrounding the convergence point. We will emerge near the original entry location in the shinobi world, though energy displacement may cause slight positional variance. Belmod addressed the group with uncharacteristic seriousness. Our primary objective remains facilitating dimensional adaptation. However, given evidence of external manipulation, we must remain alert for potential hostile entities. What limitations exist regarding divine intervention? Naruto asked, having learned enough about multiversal protocols to recognize their complexity. Quote, direct divine intervention is restricted by cosmic law, Vados explained. Gods of destruction may act if universal stability is directly threatened, but not to influence mortal conflicts or developmental pathways. Convenient loopholes, Champa muttered, always keeping us on the sidelines until things get truly catastrophic. Kaba, who had remained thoughtfully quiet throughout most discussions, stepped forward. What about the native population's reaction to our arrival? Will they perceive us as threats? The Hokage has been informed of our return, Naruto assured him. And while unexpected visitors might cause initial alarm, Konoha has experience with extraordinary circumstances. Caulifla snorted with barely contained excitement. I'm more interested in meeting these other potential Saiyan descendants. If they're anything like you, testing their capabilities should be entertaining. We're not going to challenge everyone we meet, Kaba reminded her with practiced patience. Speak for yourself, she retorted, though with good-natured enthusiasm rather than genuine disagreement. Marcarita's staff tapped lightly against the floor, drawing attention back to the mission parameters. Time flows differently between dimensions. While approximately 4 days have passed here, less than 24 hours will have elapsed in the shinobi world. This information relieved Naruto considerably. Though his training had been intensive and productive, concern about his extended absence had lingered. Learning that barely a day would have passed for his friends and colleagues eased that particular worry. Are we ready then? Champa demanded impatiently. All this talking when we could be examining this dimensional curiosity firsthand. Belmod rose from his seat with fluid grace that belied his jester-like appearance. Indeed. Let us proceed. Marcarita, if you would establish the dimensional corridor. With precise movements, Marcarita raised her staff. The ring at its top began to rotate with increasing speed, generating a spiraling energy pattern that expanded outward. Unlike the naturally occurring tear Naruto had first encountered, this dimensional corridor appeared stable and precisely configured, a testament to the angel's mastery over cosmic forces. Transit will be significantly smoother than your initial crossing, she informed Naruto. I've Calibra TED the corridor to accommodate the specific energy signatures of all participants. One by one, they entered the swirling portal, first Vados guiding Champa, then Kaba and Caulifla, followed by Belmod. As Naruto approached the threshold, Marcarita placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. Your world stands at a crossroads, she stated, her usually impassive eyes conveying unexpected depth. What emerges from this convergence depends greatly on what you've become, and what you choose to be. Before Naruto could inquire about this cryptic statement, she gestured toward the portal. Together, they stepped into the dimensional corridor, leaving Universe 11 behind as they journeyed toward a shinobi world on the brink of transformation. The dimensional transit unfolded like passing through layers of reality, each with its own physical laws and energy patterns. Unlike his first crossing, Naruto maintained full awareness throughout the journey, observing the cosmic architecture separating universes with newfound perception. The barriers between worlds were never meant to be permanent, Kurama observed within him. I can sense it now. They're constructs rather than natural features of reality. Created for specific purposes, Naruto agreed silently. And now returning to their original state. As they approached the final threshold, Naruto sensed a disturbance ahead, energy patterns that clashed discordantly rather than flowing into natural convergence. Something was indeed interfering with the dimensional reintegration, forcing patterns that resisted harmonization. Then, with a sensation like breaking through a membrane, they emerged into the familiar forest clearing where Naruto had first encountered Marcarita. Pre-dawn light filtered through the trees, casting long shadows across ground now marked with elaborate energy patterns visible only to those with enhanced perception. The convergence has progressed significantly, Marcarita observed, studying the invisible to ordinary eyes lattice of energies surrounding them. Natural integration pathways are forming, but interference patterns persist. Caulifla spun in a slow circle, absorbing the unfamiliar environment with undisguised curiosity. So this is the famous chakra dimension. Doesn't look that special. Appearances can be deceiving, Kaba reminded her, his own senses clearly detecting the unusual energy saturating their surroundings. The ambient energy here feels structured differently, more organized than natural ki flow. Belmod and Champa stood slightly apart, both gods of destructi, on studying the convergence patterns with expressions that shifted between concern and calculation. Their angels maintained positions nearby, staffs occasionally tapping against the ground as they conducted measurements beyond mortal comprehension. Naruto extended his senses, reacclimating to his home dimension while simultaneously perceiving it through newly developed awareness. The forest felt simultaneously familiar and strange, like returning to a childhood home to find it subtly altered by time and perspective. Most striking was his perception of chakra flow throughout the environment. Before his interdimensional journey, he'd perceived chakra and natural energy as distinct but related systems. Now, with ki awareness integrated into his perception, he recognized the underlying pattern. Connecting all three energy types, the framework that would allow for harmonization if properly guided. We should proceed to Konoha, he suggested, orienting himself within the familiar landscape. Kakashi-sensei will want immediate updates, and we need to begin identifying others with compatible constitutions. Belmod nodded agreement, a sensible approach, though we should remain vigilant. Our arrival may have triggered detection systems established by whoever is manipulating the convergence. As if summoned by his words, a disturbance rippled through the clearing. The air several meters away began to distort, forming patterns similar to their own dimensional entry but less stable, more erratic in configuration. Speaking of detection, Champa muttered, moving into a ready stance despite his corpulent appearance. Seems we have company. The distortion coalesced into a swirling vortex from which emerged a figure cloaked in elaborate white robes embroidered with unfamiliar symbols. Their face remained concealed behind a mask bearing markings reminiscent of Otsutsuki designs yet distinctively different, more angular, with patterns that pulsed with energy. Fascinating, the figure stated, voice modulated to conceal identifying characteristics. Divine entities from multiple universes, gathered in this dimensional pocket. My calculations predicted significant interest, not direct intervention of this magnitude. Marcarita stepped forward, staff held vertically before her in what Naruto recognized as a stance of both readiness and warning. You interfere with natural dimensional processes. Identify yourself and your purpose. The masked figure tilted their head with mechanical precision. Purpose: merely accelerating inevitable convergence. This dimensional experiment has yielded sufficient data. Reintegration allows for proper harvesting of results. Harvesting, Belmod repeated, his usual whimsical demeanor replaced by cold authority. You refer to energy and evolutionary adaptations developed within this dimension. Precisely. The figure's mask pulsed brighter, particularly the unexpected hybrid development. Their attention shifted to Naruto. A most interesting specimen. Saiyan heritage, chakra mastery, Jinchuriki status, and now ki awakening. The perfect synthesis of experimental parameters. Caulifla stepped forward aggressively. Hey, mask face. Nobody talks about people like they're laboratory rats. Especially not Saiyan descendants. The figure seemed unperturbed by her hostility. Protective instinct from Universe 6 Saiyans, evolved from conquerors to defenders. Another fascinating adaptation across universal boundaries. Enough, Naruto interjected, studying the figure with growing concern. Their energy signature NTAINED elements that triggered recognition. Not quite Otsutsuki, not quite divine, but somewhere between. You're forcing the dimensional convergence at an unnatural rate. The process needs to happen gradually for inhabitants to adapt. Adaptation is overrated, the figure replied dismissively. Valuable specimens will be preserved. The rest are simply experimental background. This casual disregard for countless lives triggered something primal within Naruto. The protective instinct that had defined his ninja way fused with newly awakened Saiyan response to threat, creating an immediate and powerful reaction. Without conscious decision, the hybrid transformation from his battle with Caulifla manifested, golden chakra cloak interwoven with blue ki, eyes shifting to their composite Sage Saiyan pattern. My world is not your laboratory, he stated, voice resonating with harmonized power. And its people are not specimens for harvesting. The masked figure studied his transformation with clinical interest. Remarkable integration efficiency. Perhaps extraction should commence immediately rather than waiting for full convergence. Before Naruto could respond, the figure raised both hands. Energy unlike anything he'd encountered before, neither pure chakra nor ki, but something that seemed to distort the fabric of reality itself, gathered around their palms. "Stand down," Belmod commanded, his own divine energy beginning to radiate outward. Dimensional manipulation at this scale violates cosmic protocols established by Zeno himself. The mention of this name caused a momentary hesitation in the figure's movements. The Omni King's jurisdiction applies to established universal structures, not experimental dimensional pockets. An interpretation you would be unwise to test, Vados remarked, her usually pleasant tone carrying unmistakable warning. For a tense moment, confrontation seemed inevitable. Then, with deliberate slowness, the figure lowered their hands. MP lamentation can proceed on original timeline. Your presence is noted but changes nothing fundamental. With those ominous words, they stepped backward into the distortion, which collapsed upon itself immediately after their departure. Well, that was informative, Champa commented dryly. Seems someone's been running unauthorized experiments with dimensional energy for quite some time. Kaba approached Naruto, expression concerned. Their interest in you specifically is troubling. They spoke of extraction, rather than observation. Yeah, that didn't sound like they wanted to invite you to dinner, Caulifla added bluntly. Naruto maintained his transformed state, processing the encounter. The masked figure's energy signature had triggered recognition on multiple levels, something out it connected to ancient memories buried within both his Uzumaki heritage and Kurama's consciousness. That energy, Kurama growled. It contained fragments similar to what Kagaya wielded, modified, as though someone studied Otsutsuki power and adapted it for different applications. Whoever they are, they've been manipulating this situation long-term, Naruto observed aloud. The Y spoke of experimental parameters and results, suggesting they've been monitoring developments here for generations. Marcarita nodded agreement. Their knowledge of universal structures and divine hierarchies indicates access to information typically restricted to celestial entities. Most concerning is their apparent belief that Zeno's authority doesn't extend to this dimensional pocket. A dangerous miscalculation, Belmod added grimly. If they persist in forced convergence, the Omni King's attention will eventually turn here. That rarely ends well for any involved. Naruto allowed his transformation to subside, though he maintained heightened awareness of his surroundings. All the more reason to accelerate our preparations. If inhabitants with compatible constitutions can establish stable integration pathways before forced convergence completes, we might achieve natural harmonization despite interference. A reasonable strategy, Vados acknowledged. Though identifying compatible individuals quickly becomes the critical path. Caulifla punched her palm with characteristic enthusiasm. That's where we come in. Kaba and I can sense Saiyan key signatures, even dormant ones. If there are others like you in this world, we'll find them. With renewed purpose, the group departed the clearing, heading toward Konoha with increased urgency. As they traveled through the forest, Naruto found himself studying the landscape with dual perception, seeing both the familiar world he'd always known and the underlying energy patterns that connected it to the greater multiverse. Whatever the masked figure's ultimate agenda, one thing became increasingly clear: the shinobi world stood at the threshold of transformation unlike anything in its history. Whether that transformation would bring destruction or evolution depended largely on actions taken in the coming days and weeks. As dawn broke over the horizon, painting the sky in colors that seemed more vibrant through his enhanced perception, Naruto renewed his fundamental commitment to protect his precious people, no matter what challenges emerged from beyond the dimensional barriers. With new allies, awakened abilities, and expanding awareness of cosmic truths, he faced the coming convergence with determined resolve. The path ahead might lead through uncharted territory, but the will of fire that guided him remained constant, now burning with the added intensity of awakened Saiyan heritage finally reunited with its distant origins among the stars. Chapter 2 and Chapter 3, Worlds in Collision. Morning sunlight splintered through Konoha's eastern gate, casting long shadows across the faces of bewildered guards. Before them stood Naruto, familiar yet somehow changed, flanked by beings whose mere presence disturbed the air with otherworldly energy. The sentries, hands instinctively tightened around their weapons, chakra flaring in defensive readiness. "Stand down," Naruto instructed, voice carrying quiet authority that hadn't been present when he'd left. "These are allies from beyond our dimension, here at the Hokage's invitation." Azumo exchanged a quick glance with Kotetsu before responding. "Forgive us, Naruto-san. But protocol requires verification, of course." Naruto produced the scroll bearing Kakashi's seal, unfurling it with practiced ease. Times of uncertainty demand heightened vigilance. The guards studied the document, gazes occasionally darting toward the visitors, particularly the two diminutive figures with skin colors unlike any human variation. One purple, one red, both radiating presence disproportionate to their stature. "Everything appears in order," Kotetsu finally announced, though tension remained evident in his posture. "The Hokage left instructions to be notified immediately upon your return." As the guards signaled for the gates to open fully, Caulifla stepped forward, dark eyes scanning the village beyond with undisguised curiosity. "So this is where you shinobi operate from? Less impressive than I expected." "Appearances can be deceptive," Kaba reminded her quietly. "I sense considerable power concentrated within these boundaries." Marcarita O.B. served the exchange with characteristic detachment, though Naruto had begun recognizing the subtle shifts in her expression that indicated interest. "The energy patterns here have unique density, Gene. Rations of chakra use compressed within limited geographical space." "Fascinating observation," Vados commented, her staff hovering millimeters above the ground as she moved. "The ambient energy Res. MB less a cultivated garden rather than natural wilderness, deliberately shaped over generations." Champa snorted impatiently. "Less analysis, more movement. I want to see this Hokage person and determine if they have any food worth sampling." Quote, "Lord Champa," Kaba began diplomatically, "perhaps we should." Yeah, maintain cosmic dignity," the god of destruction waved dismissively. "But dimensional investigations build appetites. And appearances must be maintained." Belmod, who had remained silent during this exchange, fixed his fellow deity with a look of barely concealed disdain. "Your preoccupation with consumption remains your defining characteristic, I see." As they passed through the gates, Naruto noticed immediate changes to the village since his departure. Though barely a day had passed in this world, the effects of dimensional convergence had accelerated visibly. Iridescent patterns shimmered across rooftops when viewed from certain angles. Civilians moved with unconscious caution, as though sensing subtle wrongness in the air around them. Most notably, shinobi patrols had increased significantly, Chunin and Jonin moving in coordinated patterns that indicated heightened alert status. Several Anbu shadows flickered at the periphery of Naruto's enhanced perception, tracking their progress toward the Hokage Tower. "Your military mobilized quickly," Kaba observed professionally. "Efficient response protocols. Kakashi-sensei wouldn't take unnecessary chances," Naruto replied. "The dimensional disturbances must have intensified since my departure." As if confirming his assessment, a shimmer rippled through the air above the market district, reality briefly thinning to reveal glimpses of another world superimposed over their own. Civilians pointed upward, an alarm, while shinobi moved to establish perimeter control with practiced efficiency. "The convergence accelerates exponentially," Marcarita noted, her staff emitting subtle pulses as she monitored fluctuations. "Natural integration pathways form and collapse in increasingly chaotic patterns. Consequence of external manipulation," Belmod added, his usually casual demeanor replaced by focused assessment. "The forced acceleration creates harmonic instabilities." Naruto observed the rippling distortion with newfound perception, his recent training allowing him to recognize patterns invisible to most observers. The dimensional thinning revealed glimpses of what appeared to be another Earth, yet with subtle differences in architectural style and technology level. "That's not from our universe," Caulifla noted, following his gaze. "The energy signature doesn't match Universe 6 or 11. Universe 7, Vados confirmed after brief observation. Specifically, the Earth of that reality. Esting that convergence would link worlds with parallel evolutionary paths." Their discussion drew increasing attention from villagers and shinobi alike. Whispers followed their progress, the strange visitors' appearances and Naruto's changed demeanor generating inevitable speculation. He caught fragments of conversation, mentions of otherworlders, dimension travelers, and celestial visitatio. Rippling through crowds that parted instinctively before their procession. A familiar figure appeared ahead, standing atop a roof with arms crossed. Even without active Byakugan, Hinata Hyuga's posture conveyed alert assessment. With a graceful leap, she descended to street level, moving to intercept their group. Naruto. Her greeting carried warmth beneath formal precision. The Hokage anticipated your return, though not with such extensive company. Her pale eyes swept across the visitors, lingering briefly on each divine entity before returning to Naruto. Though her expression remained composed, Naruto detected subtle shifts in her chakra pattern indicating intensified alertness. Hinata, he acknowledged with genuine pleasure. Has the situation deteriorated significantly? Dimensional anomalies increased by approximately 40% over the past 18 hours, she reported efficiently. The research division recorded 17 distinct breach events, though all remained temporary. Her gaze shifted pointedly toward his companions. Until now, a controlled transition rather than breach, Marcarita corrected mildly. Though the distinction likely appears academic from your perspective, Hinata's attention focused on the angel, intuition evidently detecting something beyond ordinary perception. You're the one who originally contacted Naruto. Your energy signature. I've never sensed anything comparable. Marcarita, angel attendant to the god of destruction of Universe 11, Naruto introduced. And these are Belmod, god of destruction, Champa, god of destruction of Universe 6. His attendant Vados, and Caulifla and Kaba, Saiyans from Universe 6. To her credit, Hinata absorbed this avalanche of cosmic information without visible reaction beyond a slight widening of her eyes. I see you've been expanding your diplomatic connections considerably. The subtle humor in her response drew an unexpected chuckle from Caulifla. I like this one, the female Saiyan declared. She processes cosmic entities without freaking out. Solid composure. A trait characteristic of the Hyuga clan, I understand, Kaba commented politely. Hinata's eyebrow raised fractionally. You're familiar with our clan. Only through preliminary briefing materials, Kaba explained. As potential allies with genetic compatibility, the Hyuga were flagged for priority assessment. This information visibly intrigued Hinata, though she maintained professional focus. The Hokage awaits your report, Naruto. Given recent developments, the council has also assembled. Naruto nodded, understanding the implications. For the full council to convene during peacetime indicated severity beyond normal security concerns. Lead the way. Our visitors bring information critical to understanding these dimensional phenomena. As they proceeded toward the administrative district, Hinata fell into step beside Naruto, speaking quietly enough that only his enhanced hearing could detect her words. Your energy has changed. There's something beneath your chakra signature now, something both foreign and strangely familiar. It's a long story, he replied softly. Hat involves discovering parts of our world's history, and my own heritage, that had been forgotten for generations. The ancient texts, she murmured, realization dawning in her eyes. The visitors. From the stars the Hyuga archives mentioned, they're connected to all this, aren't they? More directly than anyone realized, Naruto confirmed. How much have you discovered in those archives? Nada recognized that our world's isolation wasn't accidental, Hinata replied, her voice carrying uncharacteristic intensity. The Hyuga kept records predating the Sage of Six Paths, fragmentary ACC. Ounce describing beings from beyond the sky who possessed power beyond chakra. This revelation surprised Naruto. You never mentioned these records before. They were sealed within the clan's forbidden archives. Texts so old that most dismissed them as allegorical rather than historical. Her expression shifted subtly. When the dimensional disturbances began, I requested access to investigate potential connections. And found more than expected, Naruto surmised. Hinata nodded, pale eyes momentarily distant with recollection. The earliest Byakugan users documented energies flowing between worlds, pathways that existed before the dimensional barriers formed. They described a great ceiling that separated our world from others, supposedly to protect humanity from conflicts beyond our comprehension. Naruto processed this information, connecting it with what he'd learned in Universe 11. The dimensional pocket wasn't just an experiment, it was also a sanctuary of sorts. Created through cooperation between certain Otsutsuki and other cosmic entities, Hinata confirmed, gesturing subtly toward their celestial companions. Though the records become fragmentary regarding specific motivations, their conversation paused as they reached the Hokage Tower. Unlike the traditional procession through corridors and antechambers, they were directed immediately to the roof, an unprecedented breach of protocol that emphasized the situation's gravity. There they found Kakashi waiting alongside the assembled council, clan heads and senior advisors arranged in a semicircle with expressions ranging from diplomatic neutrality to barely concealed alarm. The sixth Hokage's visible eye betrayed no emotion, though Naruto detected subtle tension in his former sensei's posture. Naruto, Kakashi greeted with deceptive casualness. I see you've brought friends from considerably further away than anticipated. Before Naruto could respond, Champa waddled forward imperiously. I am Lord Champa, God of Destruction of Universe 6. This dimensional anomaly falls under my investigative jurisdiction due to potential cosmic disruption patterns. Not to be outdone, Belmod stepped forward with theatrical grace. Lord Belmod, God of Destruction of Universe 11. As the dimensional pocket in question technically adjoins my universal boundary, primary authority remains with my office. The council members' expressions reflected various degrees of incomprehension and concern at these pronouncements. Shikamaru Nara, representing his clan, narrowed his eyes in rapid analytical assessment. Ino Yamanaka appeared to be fighting an instinctive urge to establish telepathic connection for verification. Hiyashi Hyuga's Byakugan activated briefly before he composed himself with characteristic stoicism. Kakashi, demonstrating the adaptability that had defined his career, merely nodded as though divine visitors were a routine occurrence. Welcome to Konohagakure. I trust Naruto has adequately represented our village's interests during his interdimensional excursion. The shinobi has performed admirably given the circumstances, Marcarita replied, her formal tone carrying subtle approval. His unique constitution provides potential pathways for addressing the dimensional convergence threatening your world. Convergence, Shikamaru repeated, focusing on the operative term. Not invasion or attack, a natural cosmic process accelerated by external manipulation, Vados clarified. Your world exists within a dimensional pocket created thousands of years ago during what you might call the Otsutsuki era. These dimensional barriers now deteriorate, drawing your world back toward its parent universe. Silence followed this pronouncement as the council absorbed implications beyond their existing frameworks for understanding reality. Hiyashi Hyuga was first to respond, addressing his question to Naruto rather than the celestial visitors. You believe this account is accurate? That our entire world exists within some form of dimensional construct? Naruto nodded, appreciating the elder Hyuga's pragmatic approach. The evidence is compelling, Hiyashi-san. I've witnessed these other universes firsthand, observed energy patterns consistent with dimensional convergence, and, he hesitated briefly, discovered aspects of our world's history, and my own heritage, that align with their explanation. Elaborate on this heritage aspect, Kakashi instructed, detecting significance in Naruto's hesitation. With measured words, Naruto explained what he'd learned about the Uzumaki clan's distant connection to Saiyan genetics, the experimental nature of chakra development, and his own awakening abilities. As he spoke, he demonstrated brief manifestation of pure ki, disti. NCT from his usual chakra, creating a small blue sphere of energy between his palms. This energy exists in the universes beyond our dimensional pocket, he explained. When our world was created as an experimental sanctuary, early inhabitants included beings called Saiyans whose genetic material eventually integrated with native populations. The Uzumaki clan carried more of these markers than most, explaining certain distinctive traits. Caulifla stepped forward, demonstrating her own key manifestation for comparison. Pure Saiyan energy looks like this. Your friend here carries diluted heritage, but it's definitely there, and awakening rapidly since exposure to our universe's ambient ki. The council observed these demonstrations with varying reactions, scientific curiosity from the research division representative, strategic calculation from military advisors, philosophical concern from civilian counselors. Kakashi's expression remained unreadable, though his attention focused intently on the energy manifestations. These revelations would be academically fascinating under different circumstances, the Hokage finally commented. However, practical implications take precedence. Had exactly happens when this convergence completes. Marcarita answered with characteristic precision. Two primary scenarios exist. In optimal conditions, gradual reintegration allows native life forms to adapt to expanded dimensional constants. Essentially, your world joins the larger universal structure with minimal disruption. And the suboptimal scenario, Shikamaru prompted, already anticipating the answer from her careful phrasing. Catastrophic harmonic collapse, Belmod stated bluntly. Incompatible energy systems create cascading failures that could potentially destroy your re-dimensional pocket and everything within it. This pronouncement generated the first visible shock among the assembled council. Even Hiyashi's composed demeanor cracked slightly at the casual mention of global annihilation. Can this collapse be prevented? Kakashi asked, focusing on actionable information. That, Marcarita replied, is where Naruto's unique constitution becomes significant. His successful integration of chakra and ki creates a template for adaptation pathways. If sufficient individuals with compatible genetic markers can establish similar integration, natural harmonic resonance might stabilize the convergence despite external interference. External interference, Shikamaru repeated, catching the key phrase. You're saying someone is deliberately accelerating this process. Naruto described their encounter with the masked figure at the dimensional tear, emphasizing the clinical detachment with which they discussed harvesting results from the experiment. As he spoke, Hinata's expression shifted from diplomatic neutrality to growing concern. The ancient texts mentioned this possibility, she interjected, drawing surprised attention from several council members. The Hyuga archives contain warnings about harvesters, who might someday seek to claim the energies cultivated within our isolated world. Harvesters, Hiyashi repeated, studying his daughter with newfound intensity. You never mentioned discovering such specific references. I only completed translation of the oldest scrolls yesterday, Hinata explained. The dialect predates standardized writing systems, requiring cross-reference with Otsutsuki linguistic patterns. Marcarita's interest visibly intensified at this information. These archives, they contain records from the original dimensional separation. Fragmentary accounts, Hinata confirmed. The earliest Byakugan users served as witnesses to what they called the Great Veiling, when barriers formed between worlds to protect humanity from wars among heaven dwellers. This information produced subtle but noticeable reactions from both angels and destroyers, exchanged glances carrying significance beyond mortal comprehension. Naruto, with his enhanced perception, detected momentary disturbances in their usually controlled energy signatures. These records require examination, Marcarita stated with uncharacteristic directness. They may contain information regarding the original dimensional parameters that could assist in stabilizing current convergence patterns. Access to clan archives requires formal, Hiyashi began automatically. Granted, Kakashi interrupted, exercising rare assertiveness. Under the circumstances, historical information that might prevent global destruction takes precedence over traditional protocols. The council meeting continued with detailed discussion of practical responses, establishing monitoring systems for dimensional fluctuations, identifying individuals with potentially compatible genetic markers, and preparing containment protocols for possible incursions from other realities. Throughout these deliberations, Naruto observed how quickly his world's leadership adapted to cosmic revelations that should have shattered their understanding of reality. The resilience forged through generations of warfare and extraordinary challenges served them well in facing even this unprecedented situation. As the meeting concluded, Kakashi assigned specific responsibilities. Research Division would work with Marcarita and Vados to establish monitoring systems. Manaka clan would develop telepathic early warning networks. Nara strategists would formulate contingency plans for various convergence scenarios. Most significantly, Naruto, Hinata, and the universe. 6 Saiyans would begin identifying and evaluating individuals with potential genetic compatibility for adaptation training. This convergence represents unprecedented crisis and opportunity simultaneously, Kakashi summarized. Our world has remained isolated for millennia, perhaps for protection, perhaps as experiment. Either way, that isolation ends now. How we manage this transition determines whether we emerge stronger or face extinction. As the council dispersed to implement assigned tasks, Naruto found himself momentarily alone with Kakashi on the rooftop. His former sensei studied him with that characteristic penetrating gaze that had always seen beyond surface appearances. "You've changed," Kakashi observed simply. "Beyond the obvious energy differences." Naruto nodded, understanding the deeper question. Perspective shifts when you see your entire world as just one small part of something vastly larger. Does it? Kakashi's visible eye crinkled slightly. "I've always found that true significance lies in what's immediately before us, regardless of cosmic scale. Your father understood that protecting what's precious doesn't require understanding the entire universe." He observation struck Naruto with unexpected force. Despite everything he'd learned about multiversal structures and cosmic hierarchies, the fundamental truth remained unchanged. His purpose centered on protecting those precious to him, whether from traditional threats or dimensional collapse. "You're right," he acknowledged. "Though the context has expanded dramatically. Context always expands with time and knowledge," Kakashi replied philosophically. "That's the nature of growth." He gestured toward the village spread below them. "Your priorities haven't changed, just the scope of challenges facing them." Before Naruto could respond, a sudden alarm shattered the moment, emergency signals blaring across the village with distinctive pattern indicating unfamiliar threat. Simultaneously, Shikamaru appeared via body flicker technique, expression grave. "Dimensional breach in progress," he reported tersely. "Northwest sector, near the academy." Unlike previous fluctuations, this one's stabilizing rather than collapsing. Naruto was moving before Shikamaru finished speaking, leaping from the rooftop with chakra-enhanced velocity. Behind him, he sensed rather than saw Marcarita and the Saiyans following, while Belmod and Champa remained with Kakashi, presumably restricted by whatever cosmic protocols governed direct divine intervention. The breach site became visible from 2 districts away, a swirling distortion approximately 3 meters in diameter hovering 4 meters above street level. Unlike the shimmering, translucent anomalies observed previously, this breach appeared solid and expanding, its edges crackling with energy that distorted surrounding architecture. Academy students had been evacuated to shelters, while Jonin-level shinobi maintained perimeter control, with clear uncertainty about appropriate countermeasures. Iruka Umino directed defensive positioning with characteristic efficiency despite the unprecedented nature of the threat. "Naruto," he called, relief evident at seeing his former student. "This appeared approximately 3 minutes ago and continues expanding. Conventional containment techniques have proven ineffective." "It's a directed breach," Marcarita announced, arriving beside Naruto with impossible grace. "Someone is deliberately forcing connection between dimensional planes rather than exploiting natural convergence points." As if confirming her assessment, the distortion pulsed suddenly, expanding outward before stabilizing at nearly twice its original diameter. Through the portal-like opening, a landscape became visible, rolling plains beneath purple-tinged sky, with crystalline structures visible in the distance. "That's not Universe 11 or 6, Caulifla noted, dropping into combat stance. "Energy signature feels artificial somehow." "Synthetic dimensional pocket," Vados confirmed, joining them with her staff already glowing in anticipation. "A constructed reality rather than natural universal formation." Before further analysis could proceed, figures emerged from the portal, humanoid in general configuration but with distinctly non-human characteristics. Their skin held metallic sheen, while articulated RMOR integrated seamlessly with their bodies. Most distinctive were their eyes, solid black orbs that reflected light without revealing pupil or iris. "Convergence security compromised," the lead figure announced in flat, mechanical tones. "Indigenous resistance detected. Commencing containment protocols." Without further warning, they attacked, movements blindingly fast and coordinated with inhuman precision. Their combat style employed no recognizable taijutsu or martial technique, instead functioning with mathematical efficiency that suggested programmed responses rather than trained reflexes. Naruto reacted instinctively, entering his hybrid transformation state, golden chakra interwoven with blue ki creating the distinctive energy signature he developed in Universe 11. The enhancement NT allowed him to match the intruder's speed, intercepting their advance before they could engage the defensive perimeter. Anomalous energy pattern detected, one intruder announced, adjusting attack vectors to focus on Naruto. Priority target identified, extraction protocols authorized. That specific terminology, eerily similar to the masked figure's phrasing, confirmed connection to whoever manipulated the dimensional convergence. As three attackers converged on his position, Naruto leveraged his hybrid abilities to full advantage. Shadow clones enhanced with key reinforcement engaged multi-PLE opponents simultaneously while his sensory perception tracked their movement patterns. Nearby, Caulifla had transformed to Super Saiyan state, golden aura flaring as she engaged intruders with characteristic aggressive efficiency. "These things aren't fully organic," she called, noting how her strikes produced metallic resonance rather than expected impact against flesh. "Some kind of biomechanical construct." Kaba, maintaining base form but channeling ki with precise control, employed more technical fighting style, analyzing weaknesses in the intruders, movement patterns and exploiting openings with surgical strikes. "They adapt to established attack patterns," he observed. "Varying techniques proves more effective than repetitive application." Most impressive to Naruto was Hinata's performance. Without access to ki or hybrid transformation, she nevertheless engaged multiple opponents effectively, her gentle fist style disrupting whatever energy systems powered the intruders. When Byakugan activated, her strikes became increasingly precise, targeting junction points invisible to normal perception. "Their energy pathways resemble chakra networks but carry different signatures," she reported between engagements. "Disrupting flow patterns at key intersections temporarily disables their combat functions." Marcarita and Vados maintained observation positions, their non-int intervention likely mandated by cosmic protocols. Nevertheless, their presence clearly registered with the intruders, who established wide avoidance patterns around both angels. As the battle progressed, Naruto recognized the intruders' primary objective wasn't conquest but assessment. They attacked with calculated restraint, seemingly gathering combat data rather than pursuing outright victory. Our coordinated retreat began precisely 7 minutes after engagement initiated, withdrawing through the dimensional portal with mechanical synchronization. Analysis complete, the final intruder announced before departing. Indigenous capabilities categorized, adaptation algorithms initiated. Subsequent engagement parameters adjusted accordingly. The portal remained active briefly after their departure before collapsing with concussive force that damaged surrounding buildings. Silence fell across the battlefield as defenders processed the encounter's implications. "Well, that was interesting," Caulifla commented, allowing her Super Saiyan transformation to subside. "Mechanical scouts with organic components, programmed for adaptive analysis. Assessment units," Kaba clarified. DAISY, GNED to evaluate defensive capabilities prior to main engagement. Naruto released his hybrid transformation, studying the residual energy patterns where the portal had been. "They specifically identified me as an extraction target." Same terminology the masked figure used. "Your hybrid energy signature appears to be of particular interest to whoever orchestrates these incursions," Marcarita observed. Approaching the former portal location, her staff traced patterns in the air, analyzing lingering dimensional resonance. The synthetic pocket dimension they emerged from bears certain similarity. Ties to your own world structure, artificially constructed rather than naturally formed. "Could they be from the same creators?" Hinata asked, deactivating her Byakugan though remaining alert. "Perhaps whoever designed our dimensional pocket created others for different purposes." "A reasonable hypothesis," Vados acknowledged. "Dimensional engineering of this sophistication suggests advanced abilities beyond conventional universal science. Few entities possess such knowledge." Iruka approached, coordinating medical response for the few defenders who'd sustained injuries during the brief but intense engagement. "Naruto, what exactly were those things?" "Not like any technique or summoning I've encountered. Something new," Naruto replied honestly. "Or perhaps very old, connected to whoever created our world's dimensional boundaries in the first place." The implications of this statement visibly impacted Iruka, whose academic background provided framework for understanding the revolutionary nature of such revelations. "You're saying our entire historical understanding may be incomplete? That forces beyond even the Otsutsuki shaped our world. The Otsutsuki themselves were Barely one component in a much larger cosmic structure, Marcarita explained. Their clan served various functions within the divine hierarchy before certain members developed independent ambitions. Further discussion halted as Kakashi arrived with Belmont and Champa, the latter appearing distinctly annoyed at missing combat engagement. Preliminary reports indicated dimensional incursion, the Hokage stated. I see the situation has been contained for now. Assessment units rather than invasion force, Kaba reported professionally. Their objective appeared to be capability evaluation rather than territorial acquisition. Boring reconnaissance, Champa complained. Not even worth divine intervention protocols. Be grateful for that limitation, Belmont replied pointedly. Direct destructive intervention would have caused more damage than these constructs. Naruto focused on practical implications rather than divine bickering. They'll return with adapted strategies. This was in formation gathering for something larger. Agreed, Kakashi acknowledged, which accelerates our timeline considerably. Shikamaru is coordinating with Research Division to establish village-wide monitoring systems. Hinata, how quickly can you access those historical records you mentioned? Immediately, she replied, though comprehensive translation will require time. The oldest texts use Simbo. Lick language that predates conventional writing systems. I can assist with translation, Marcarita offered unexpectedly. Certain ancient languages remain within angelic knowledge repositories. Kakashi nodded, mentally adjusting tactical assignments. Naruto, begin identification of individuals with genetic compatibility. Focus on clans with potential Saiyan markers, Uzumaki descendants primarily. Then others with unusual chakra manifestations. The Hyuga may carry compatible markers as well, Hinata suggested. Our visual prowess and chakra control techniques bear certain similarities what you've described of Saiyan capabilities. Worth investigating, Caulifla agreed with characteristic directness. Your fighting style shows adaptability that most non-Saiyans lack. As the response team organized assignments, Naruto found himself momentarily distracted by an unexpected sensation. Subtle disturbances in natural energy patterns throughout the village, as though the recent dimensional breach had weakened barriers beyond the immediate portal location. Extending his senses through sage perception, he detected numerous micro-fluctuations across Konoha, reality briefly thinning. At scattered locations before restabilizing. The incursion accelerated degradation throughout the dimensional boundary, he realized aloud. Their portal technology didn't just create localized it weakened structural integrity across the entire area. Marcarita confirmed this assessment with her own observations. Deliberate destabilization rather than coincidental damage. Their technology specifically targets dimensional barrier cohesion. Then our timeline shortens further, Kakashi concluded grimly. How long before critical failure becomes probable? At current degradation rates, Vados performed complex calculations visibly in the air before her. Approximately 17 days before irreversible cascade begins. Complete dimensional collapse would follow within 72 hours thereafter. The stark timeline silenced momentary conversations as implications registered with all present. What had seemed a gradually unfolding cosmic event suddenly transformed into imminent existential threat. 17 days to establish adaptation pathways sufficient to preserve our world, Kakashi summarized with characteristic pragmatic acceptance. We've faced worse odds, have we? Shikamaru muttered, though without defeatism, merely accurate assessment. Naruto found unexpected resolve forming within him, determination crystallizing around the hybrid energy now flowing through his transformed constitution. Throughout his life, he'd faced seemingly impossible challenges through combination of unwavering will and creative adaptation. This cosmic threat, while unprecedented in scale, would yield to the same fundamental approach. We start immediately, he stated, natural leadership emerging without conscious effort. Hinata, extract whatever information you can. From those historical records, focus on adaptation techniques mentioned by early Byakugan users during the original dimensional separation. Caulifla, Kaba, we'll establish training protocols for AWOC. Ending dormant key incompatible individuals. Marcarita, can you create a method for identifying those with highest compatibility potential? The angel nodded, seemingly approving of his decisive approach. Certain resonance patterns within chakra signatures would indicate latent key compatibility. I can develop detection parameters for your sensor-type shinobi to implement. With renewed purpose, the response team dispersed to their assigned tasks. Naruto remained briefly with Kakashi, both gazing across the village that had already survived so much: wars, invasions, betrayals, and near destruction. Now it faced threat beyond conventional comprehension, yet the will of fire burned no less brightly for the cosmic scale of their challenge. I need to examine the seal containing Kagaya, Naruto stated, voicing the conclusion that had been forming since witnessing the dimensional intruders. She was connected to whoever created these dimensional structures originally. Her knowledge might provide critical insights. Kakashi's visible eye narrowed in consideration. Accessing that seal carries significant risks. Her consciousness remains dangerous even separated from her power. Risks we must accept given our timeline. Naruto countered. If 17 days remain before irreversible collapse, we need every possible information source, especially one directly connected to the original dimensional separation. After brief contemplation, Kakashi nodded agreement. I'll authorize the access protocols. But Naruto, he added with unexpected intensity, approach her with extreme caution. Whatever she was before becoming the monster we fought, Kagaya's mind has had centuries to contemplate revenge against those who sealed her. I understand, Naruto assured him. But I also believe there's more to her story than we ever learned, connections to these cosmic structures that might change our understanding of her original intentions. Kakashi's expression suggested skepticism but recognition of necessity. Proceed with the assessment protocols first. We'll prepare Kagaya's seal access while you identify compatible individuals for adaptation training. As Naruto departed to begin this critical work, he sensed Marcarita falling into step beside him, her presence now familiar despite its otherworldly nature. They walked in comfortable silence through streets still processing the recent dimensional incursion. Civilians returning cautiously to interrupted routines while shinobi established enhanced security patterns. You adapted quickly to leadership role, Marcarita observed eventually, coordinating responses across diverse capabilities without hesitation. Experience with unlikely alliances, Naruto replied with slight smile. During the Fourth Ninja War, I helped coordinate 5 nations that had been enemies for generations. Beyond mere experience, she countered. Your hybrid energy manifestation demonstrates unusual harmonic integration, different systems functioning cooperatively rather than competitively. This pattern extends to your cognitive approach as well. Naruto considered this assessment as they reached the hospital complex where screening would begin. I've always believed in finding common ground between opposing forces. Maybe that's why chakra and ki integrated more smoothly than expected in my system. Marcarita's expression FTED subtly. The minute change that Naruto had learned indicated deeper interest than her typical analytical observation. Most beings struggle to harmonize conflicting energies within themselves, let alone between disparate groups. Your natural tendency toward integration rather than domination represents significant evolutionary advantage. Something in her tone suggested layers of meaning beyond the immediate discussion of energy systems. Before Naruto could explore this further, they were joined by Sakura Haruno, who'd been coordinating medical response protocols since the dimensional disturbances began. Naruto, she greeted with professional warmth. The Hokage sent instructions regarding genetic screening procedures. Her attention shifted to Marcarita, medical training evidently allowing her to process the angel's otherworldly appearance without visible reaction. You must be one of our interdimensional visitors. I'm Sakura Haruno, Chief Medical Officer. Marcarita, angel attendant to the god of destruction of Universe 11, came the formal response. Your medical infrastructure appears reasonably advanced for this dimensional development stage. Sakura blinked at the candid compliment before professionalism reasserted itself. We've prepared examination facilities as requested. If you'll specify the genetic markers we're screening for, we can begin processing immediately. As they proceeded into the medical complex, Naruto explained the compatibility requirements while Marcarita established precise detection parameters. Sakura absorbed this information with remarkable adaptability, asking incisive questions that demonstrated why she'd advanced so quickly through medical leadership ranks. So we're essentially looking for individuals whose chakra networks show specific resonance patterns when exposed to key stimulus, she summarized. And these patterns would indicate potential for adaptation during dimensional convergence. Correct, Marcarita confirmed. Certain genetic markers carried through bloodlines originally containing Saiyan DNA would manifest as distinctive harmonic responses in chakra circulation patterns. Starting with known Uzumaki descendants makes logical sense, Sakura acknowledged, though they're scattered throughout the 5 nations since Uzushiogekure's destruction. We begin with those accessible, Naruto decided pragmatically, while simultaneously developing training protocols that can be distributed to other villages once compatible individuals are identified there. Their planning session was interrupted, as Caulifla arrived with characteristic abruptness, practically bouncing with excited energy. Found something interesting. The Hyuga girls' historical records mention specific training techniques for star visitor energy that sound exactly like basic key manipulation exercises. This information immediately captured their attention. Detailed instructions, Naruto asked. Fragmented but recognizable, Caulifla confirmed. Meditation postures, energy circulation pathways, even crude diagrams showing transformation progressions. Whoever recorded this information had first-hand experience with Saiyan training methods. This could significantly accelerate our adaptation protocols, Sakura realized. Historical techniques specifically designed for chakra users to access ki would be more effective than trying to adapt current Universe 6 or 11 training methods. Marcarita's staff pulsed with subtle light as she processed this development. The dimensional separation may have been more co-operative than historical records indicate. These instructional preservations suggest deliberate preparation for eventual reintegration. Or contingency planning in case of barrier failure, Naruto suggested. Either way, it provides critical foundation for our current efforts. As they discussed implementation strategies, Hinata arrived with several ancient scrolls carefully protected in specialized containment seals. Her expression conveyed controlled excitement beneath characteristic composure. These contain the most relevant training protocols, she explained, carefully unsealing the delicate documents. And something else. References to what they called the Crimson Archive, containing comprehensive knowledge about dimensional harmonization. The what? Caulifla asked, peering at the unfamiliar script with obvious frustration at being unable to read it. Based on contextual references, some form of knowledge repository specifically addressing dimensional transition challenges, Hinata elaborated. Created during the original separation as safeguard against eventual barrier degradation. Marcarita studied the ancient text with newfound intensity. The location of this archive. That's where complications arise, Hinata admitted. The records indicate it was entrusted to she who bridges worlds, presumably referring to Kagaya Otsutsuki, given contextual markers. This revelation transformed theoretical interest in accessing Kagaya's consciousness to immediate practical necessity. Naruto exchanged significant glance with Marcarita, both recognizing the implications simultaneously. The Crimson Archive could provide complete adaptation pathways rather than requiring us to reconstruct techniques piecemeal, he observed. If Kagaya knows its location, conversation with her becomes priority, Marcarita concluded. Though extracting cooperative information from one sealed for millennia presents significant diplomatic challenges. Naruto smiled slightly at her understated phrasing. Diplomatic challenges are my specialty. While Sakura established screening protocols with hospital staff, Naruto, Hinata, Marcarita, and Caulifla departed for a secure facility where monitoring connections to Kagaya's seal were maintained. Located beneath Anbu headquarters in specially reinforced chambers, the facility represented some of the most advanced sealing technology in the shinobi world. The seal doesn't contain her physical form, Naruto explained as they descended through multiple security checkpoints. That remains in the dimensional void. Created by 6 paths, planetary devastation. What's monitored here is the consciousness echo that remained connected to our dimension. A spiritual tether rather than complete containment, Marcarita observed. Interesting approach to multidimensional imprisonment. Necessity rather than design, Hinata clarified. Complete severance proved impossible due to her connection to the dimensional structure itself. The monitoring seal maintains observation without allowing influence. Caulifla appeared uncharacteristically subdued as they reached the final security barrier. This Kagaya person, exactly how dangerous is she? Your energy patterns shift when discussing her. She nearly destroyed our world, Naruto replied honestly. Possessed power beyond anything we'd encountered and intended to absorb all chakra into herself. It required combined efforts of the entire allied shinobi forces plus powers granted by the Sage of Six Paths to seal her. Yet you're considering voluntary communication, Khalifla noted skeptically. Either you're incredibly confident or borderline suicidal. Calculated risk given our timeline, Naruto explained. And my hybrid energy state provides additional protection against the influence techniques she might attempt. The final chamber contained a complex seal array inscribed across floor, walls, and ceiling, interconnected patterns flowing with subtle chakra illumination. At the center floated a crystalline structure approximately 1 meter in diameter, within which swirled iridescent energy patterns occasionally coalescing into recognizable facial features before dispersing again. Her consciousness maintains coherence despite isolation, Marcarita noted with professional interest. Impressive psychological resilience, or determination fueled by millennia of hatred. Hinata countered pragmatically. The monitoring team reports periodic surge events that suggest continued attempts to influence external reality. Specialized ANBU operators maintained constant observation from recessed positions around the chamber, their distinctive masks marked with sealing symbols providing additional containment redundancy. The lead operator approached as they entered. Recognition visible despite facial concealment. Uzumaki-san, he acknowledged formally. The Hokage transmitted authorization for consciousness engagement protocol. Preparations are underway, though I must register official security concerns regarding potential information exchange with the subject. Noted and appreciated, Naruto replied with equal formality. Existential timeline justifies elevated risk tolerance. We'll proceed with maximum containment parameters. As the Anbu team established enhanced security protocols, Marcarita studied the crystalline containment with analytical precision. The consciousness stabilization demonstrates surprisingly advanced dimensional anchoring technology for your world's development stage. Collaborative effort from numerous SEAL masters. Hinata explained, incorporating techniques from all 5 grade nations plus independent specialist input. The preparation process required approximately 30 minutes. Establishing additional containment barriers, activating specialized sensory monitoring systems, and configuring communication pathways that would allow limited exchange without providing Kagaya's consciousness access to external influence capabilities. Throughout these preparations, Naruto observed the swirling patterns within the crystal with newfound perception. His hybrid energy state wed recognition of structures invisible during their original conflict with Kagaya, particularly how her consciousness maintained coherence through what appeared to be complex dimensional tethering rather than conventional chakra patterns. She exists simultaneously in multiple dimensional states, he realized aloud. That's how she maintains consciousness despite physical form being sealed elsewhere. Multidimensional cognition, Marcarita confirmed, characteristic of beings who've ascended beyond conventional 3-dimensional existence. The Otsutsuki achieved this through consumption of god trees across multiple worlds. This observation provided new context for understanding Kagaya's powers and motivations. Perhaps her seemingly incomprehensible actions had operated according to perceptual framework beyond conventional human understanding, multidimensional calculations rather than merely power-hungry consumption. Ready to proceed, Uzumaki-san, the Anbu captain announced. Communication pathway established with triple redundant containment barriers. Maximum recommended exposure duration, 15 minutes. Naruto nodded acknowledgement, centering himself in preparation for contact. Maintain emergency severance protocols throughout the engagement. If I give the signal or show any signs of consciousness alteration, terminate connection immediately. With preparations complete, Naruto approached the crystalline containment while the others maintained observation positions at safe distance. Placing his palms against the smooth surface, he channeled his hybrid energy specific pattern designed to establish consciousness connection without compromising containment integrity. The crystal's iridescence intensified, swirling patterns accelerating before suddenly coalescing into recognizable form. Kagaya's face, ethereal yet distinct, regarding him with eyes that contained both ancient knowledge and cold calculation. Uzumaki Naruto, her voice echoed with multi-tonal resonance that seemed to originate from multiple locations simultaneously. You return to my presence voluntarily. How unexpected. Circumstances change, Kagaya, he replied evenly. Our world faces dimensional collapse. Your knowledge may be critical to preventing catastrophic failure. A sound like crystalline laughter emanated from everywhere and nowhere. The barriers thin at last. The experiment concludes. Why should I assist those who imprisoned me? Because destruction of this dimension would sever your consciousness tethers permanently, Naruto countered. Even your multi-dimensional existence requires anchoring points. The swirling patterns briefly destabilize before reforming with sharper definition. You've gained knowledge beyond your previous limitations. Interesting development. I've learned about the dimensional pocket our world occupies. About the original separation that isolated us from the greater multiverse. About the Crimson Archive that contains knowledge necessary for successful reintegration. This last reference produced visible reaction, the crystalline structure briefly pulsing with intensified energy while Kagaya's expression shifted from cold calculation to genuine surprise. The archive was hidden beyond mortal access, she stated, uncertainty briefly replacing arrogance. How came you to knowledge of its existence? Ancient Hyuga records preserved references. Naruto explained, gesturing toward Hinata without breaking eye contact with Kagaya's manifestation. They indicate you were entrusted with its location as she who bridges worlds. For several moments, Kagaya's manifestation remained silent, swirling patterns suggesting internal deliberation beyond conventional thought processes. When she spoke again, her tone carried nuance absent from their previous encounters. The dimensional experiment was never intended to remain permanent, she finally stated. Isolation served dual purpose, protecting developing humanity from cosmic conflicts while allowing chakra evolution to proceed without external interference. Yet you consumed the chakra fruit yourself, Naruto observed, redirecting evolutionary pathway intended for broader distribution. Simplistic interpretation of complex circumstance, Kagaya countered. The fruit's power was meant for controlled distribution over generations. External threats necessitated immediate consolidation under singular guidance. What external threats? Hinata asked, approaching despite security protocols advising distance. Her Byakugan activated, studying Kagaya's manifestation with perception beyond conventional vision. The swirling patterns oriented toward Hinata with evident interest. Hyuga perception remains impressive despite generational dilution. The threats, young one, came from both within and beyond conventional dimensional boundaries. Certain factions among celestial hierarchies sought to harvest chakra development prematurely. Others among my own clan viewed this world as merely another consumption opportunity. This information aligned with fragmentary understanding they'd pieced together from various sources. Naruto pressed the momentary cooperative opening. And now similar threats re-emerge as dimensional barriers weaken. The knowledge contained in the Crimson Archive could help establish adaptation pathways before catastrophic collapse. Why should I assist those who condemned me without understanding my purpose? Kagaya demanded, though with less hostility than expected. Your limited perception interpreted necessary actions as mere power consolidation. Perhaps we judged without complete context, Naruto acknowledged, recognizing diplomatic opening. The multiversal scale of your decisions exceeded our understanding. But current circumstances offer opportunity for reassessment, if you provide access to the archive and assist with adaptation protocols. Kagaya's manifestation studied him with unsettling intensity. Your energy has transformed. Saiyan heritage awakened alongside chakra mastery and Jinchuriki harmonization. Precisely the integration pathway the original experiment intended to eventually produce. This confirmation of his hybrid development's significance registered with everyone present. Marcarita stepped forward, her angelic presence causing visible reaction in Kagaya's manifestation. The dimensional reintegration accelerates beyond natural parameters, the angel stated directly. External manipulation forces convergence timeline toward catastrophic harmonics rather than stable transition. The archive's adaptation protocols represent optimal preservation pathway. Kagaya's attention focused on Marcarita with complex emotions visible in her swirling patterns. Angel attendant. Your kind observed the original separation with characteristic non-intervention despite possessing power to prevent necessity. Cosmic protocols limit direct intervention in developmental pathways, Marcarita replied evenly. A limitation you once understood when serving transitional functions between hierarchies. This exchange revealed relationship dynamics previously unknown to the shinobi. Observers, suggesting Kagaya had once occupied position within cosmic structures rather than merely arriving as alien invader as their histories recorded. The archive's location, Naruto redirected. Recognizing limited engagement duration, will you provide access to prevent dimensional collapse? Kagaya's manifestation seemed to expand briefly before contracting into more precise configuration. Conditional cooperation may be arranged. Primary condition. Partial consciousness liberation allowing multidimensional perception beyond current containment limitations. This request immediately triggered security concerns among the Anbu observers. Expanded consciousness parameters could potentially provide escape vectors from the carefully constructed containment. Impossible, the captain stated flatly. Containment integrity cannot be compromised under any circumstances. Not liberation from containment, Kagaya clarified with evident disdain for limited understanding. Expanded perceptual range while maintaining core consciousness tethering. Necessary for identifying archive access protocols across dimensional boundaries. Naruto considered this request carefully, weighing security risks against critical timeline pressure. Limited expansion within triple redundant containment barriers might be arranged, provided angel attendants maintain oversight throughout the process. Marcarita nodded agreement to this condition. Angelic perception can monitor consciousness boundaries to prevent unauthorized expansion beyond established parameters. After extensive security consultation and implementation of additional containment measures, limited agreement was established. Kagaya would provide archive access information in exchange for expanded perceptual range within strictly defined parameters. The arrangement satisfied neither party completely, characteristic of effective diplomatic compromise. The archive exists simultaneously across multiple dimensional planes. Kagaya explained once preliminary agreements were implemented. Access requires specific harmonic resonance between chakra, natural energy, and what you now recognize as ki. Originally intended for activation once dimensional reintegration reached appropriate developmental stage, which our accelerated timeline now forces prematurely, Naruto observed. Indeed, the location exists within what you know as the Sage's Six Paths Shrine. Though not in conventional physical space, the archive manifests where dimensional boundaries naturally thin, specifically, the original convergence point where I first arrived in this world. Hinata consulted ancient records she'd brought. That would be the Divine Tree's original manifestation site, northern continent, approximately 600 kilometers beyond Frost Country borders. Inhospitable territory, Naruto noted, largely unexplored since the Fourth War due to persistent chakra disturbances in that region. Disturbances resulting from dimensional thinning that existed long before current acceleration, Kagaya confirmed. A natural convergence point where barriers between worlds remained permeable despite overall separation. How is the archive accessed once location is reached? Marcarita inquired. Staff recording information through subtle energy patterns. Triangulation through three specific energy types, chakra, natural energy, and ki, synchronized at precise harmonic frequencies. Kagaya's manifestation shifted to display complex energy pattern diagrams. The hybrid transformation you've developed, Uzumaki Naruto, provides necessary foundation. Though amplification through additional compatible individuals would stabilize access parameters, the technical details that followed exceeded conventional shinobi understanding. Though Marcarita and occasionally Hinata's Byakugan enhanced perception grasped concepts beyond others present. Most significantly, Kagaya confirmed that information within the archive would provide comprehensive adaptation protocols for the dimensional transition, potentially saving countless lives if implemented before catastrophic collapse occurred. As their communication approached durational limits, Naruto addressed the underlying question that contextual revelations had raised. Your original intentions when coming to this world, they weren't simply conquest and consumption as we believed, were they? Kagaya's manifestation regarded him with expression that might almost be described as wistful beneath her characteristic cold dignity. Simplistic categorizations satisfy limited understanding. My purpose contained complexity beyond your historical frameworks, protection, preservation, and eventual guided evolution toward cosmic integration. Yet something changed, Hinata observed perceptively. Your methods became increasingly extreme, ultimately threatening the very world you claim to have protected. Isolation transforms perspective, Kagaya acknowledged with unexpected candor. Centuries of watching humanity squander potential through endless conflict. Perhaps my methods adapted toward increasingly direct intervention. Perhaps consuming the chakra fruit dire. CTLY altered cognitive frameworks beyond original intentions. This rare admission, subtle acknowledgement of transformation from protector to threat, provided context previously absent from historical understanding. Before further exploration could proceed, however, the Anbu captain signaled mandatory connection termination as established time parameters reached completion. We'll return with expedition preparations, Naruto assured Kagaya as connection protocols initiated shutdown sequences. The archive access represents priority mission given convergence timeline. One final observation, Uzumaki Naruto, Kagaya stated as her manifestation began dissipating into swirling patterns once more. The masked entity manipulating dimensional convergence, their energy signature contains elements suggesting unauthorized access to Otsutsuki evolutionary techniques combined with technology beyond this dimensional pocket's development stage. Exercise appropriate caution during archive retrieval. With this cryptic warning, the connection terminated, crystalline containment returning to its standard monitoring configuration. The chamber remained silent as all present processed revelations from this unprecedented exchange. Well, that was intense, Khalifla commented, breaking tension with characteristic directness. So we're trusting cosmic-level being who nearly destroyed your world because we're short on options. Trusting but verifying, Naruto clarified. The archive's existence aligns with fragmentary references in ancient texts. Kagaya's information provides specific access parameters we couldn't have determined independently within available timeframe. Marcarita's expression suggested complex analysis beyond verbal articulation. Her consciousness maintains surprising coherence despite isolation. The multidimensional perception she referenced aligns with advanced Otsutsuki evolutionary states rather than standard humanoid cognitive frameworks. Could she have been telling truth about protective intentions? Hinata wondered, deactivating Byakugan with visible fatigue from sustained usage. Perhaps historical records preserved incomplete context regarding her original purpose. Intentions evolve with circumstances, Naruto observed philosophically. My own father sealed a tailed beast within his newborn son, action that could be interpreted as cruel sacrifice. Or desperate preservation depending on contextual understanding. As they departed the containment facility, expedition planning began with characteristic shinobi efficiency. The location Kagaya identified would require specialized team composition, individuals with complementary capabilities for both journey security and archive access protocols. The hybrid transformation represents key access component, Naruto noted as they reached administrative headquarters where Kakashi awaited debriefing. But Kagaya mentioned amplification through additional compatible individuals would improve stability. Our screening protocols have identified 17 individuals with highest compatibility potential, Sakura reported, joining them with preliminary medical data. Primarily Uzumaki Dessen. Dance with 3 Hyuga showing unexpected resonance patterns. 17 potential adaptation templates, Hinata calculated. If each could establish even rudimentary key access alongside existing chakra systems, then natural harmonic resonance might begin stabilizing throughout the population, Marcarita completed the thought. Creating foundation for broader adaptation before catastrophic collapse. Kakashi absorbed their report with characteristic calm despite apocalyptic implications. Expedition team composition recommendations. Myself. Obviously, Naruto began. Hinata's Byakugan, and provides critical perceptual advantages for navigating dimensional thinning zones. Sakura's medical expertise ensures compatibility monitoring throughout journey. The Universe 6 Saiyans provide essential key expertise for archive access protocols. Add Shikamaru for strategic contingency planning, Kakashi suggested. And all assign specialized Anbu support for perimeter security. The region Kagaya identified remains largely unmapped since the Fourth War. Unknown variables likely exceed standard mission parameters. As expedition preparations accelerated, Naruto found unexpected moment of relative calm on Hokage Tower's roof, watching sunset paint Konoha in golden light while contemplating how dramatically understanding of his world had transformed in mere days. The village below Konti, nude normal activities despite increased security presence, civilians shopping, children playing, life proceeding with resilience characteristic of those who'd survived previous existential threats. Quote, "Your contemplative state suggests philosophical processing rather than tactical planning," Marcarita observed, joining him with silent grace characteristic of her angelic nature. "Perspective shifts," Naruto acknowledged. "Everything I believed about our world's history, my own heritage, even Kagaya's motivations, all contextually transformed by cosmic scale I never imagined." Expanded understand. "Ding often creates temporary disorientation," she noted. "Yet your adaptation rate exceeds normal cognitive adjustment parameters." "Adaptation has always been my specialty," Naruto replied with slight smile. "Whether new techniques, unexpected challenges, or apparently cosmic revelations about reality itself." Marcarita studied him with that penetrating gaze that seemed to perceive beyond conventional limitations. This quality, finding balance amid transformation rather than resistance against change, represents evolutionary advantage few beings develop naturally. It explains your successful energy integration where others would experience harmonic collapse. Something in her tone suggested personal interest beyond analytical observation. Subtle shift Naruto had begun recognizing despite her typically reserved demeanor. Before he could explore this further, Hinata arrived with expedition preparation updates. "Final equipment configurations complete," she reported efficiently. "Speci. Alized sealing scrolls for archive transport, communications systems with dimensional reinforcement, and medical supplies for extended field operations." Her gaze shifted between Naruto and Marcarita, with brief but perceptible assessment before continuing professionally. "Departure scheduled for dawn tomorrow. Weather patterns indicate clear conditions initially, though dimensional thinning may see. Create localized atmospheric disturbances as we approach the convergence point. The region remains largely unexplored since the war," Naruto noted. "Persistent chakra disturbances discouraged standard mapping expeditions." "Those disturbances now make perfect sense," Hinata observed. "Natural dimensional thinning around the original convergence point created energy fluctuations that conventional shinobi techniques couldn't properly categorize." As they discussed final expedition parameters, Caulifla joined them with characteristic energetic entrance, practically bouncing with barely contained excitement. "This is getting interesting," she announced without preamble. "Just finished preliminary key assessment with your medical team. Several candidates show remarkable adaptation potential. Particularly one red-haired woman who practically radiated Saiyan genetic markers. Karen," Naruto identified immediately. "Former member of Sasuke's team Taka, now working with our sensor division. Pure Uzumaki lineage with specialized sensory capabilities. Whatever her background, her cellular response to key stimulus exceeded even your initial reactions," Caulifla continued enthusiastically. "Cab is training her on basic manifestation techniques right now. She's already produced visible aura after just 2 hours of instruction. This development significantly improved their adaptation pathway potential. If multiple individuals could establish functional key integration alongside existing chakra systems, harmonic resonance might spread exponentially throughout compatible populations. She should join the expedition team," Naruto decided immediately. Her sensory capabilities combined with awakening key potential could prove crucial for archive access protocols. With this addition finalized, expedition preparations completed with remarkable efficiency, characteristic of Shinobi World's generations of experience conducting high-stakes missions under extreme time constraints. By nightfall, all components had been assembled, team composition finalized, and contingency protocols established for various scenarios they might encounter. As Naruto conducted final equipment check in his apartment, unexpected visitor arrived. Sasuke Uchiha, recently returned from extended reconnaissance mission beyond 5 nations' boundaries. Interdimensional visitors, cosmic revelations, N.D. expedition to access ancient knowledge repository, Sasuke summarized with characteristic directness. "You maintain impressive capacity for finding unprecedented situations." "Not exactly by choice this time," Naruto replied wryly. "Though I admit discovering Saiyan heritage among Uzumaki bloodlines wasn't on my expected developments list." Sasuke studied him with Rinnegan briefly activated, perceiving energy patterns invisible to conventional vision. "Your chakra has integrated something new, foreign yet harmonized rather than conflicting. Impressive stabilization given radical system introduction." Apparently I've always had potential for both energies, Naruto explained. The dimensional barriers suppressed key manifestation throughout our world, but with convergence accelerating, dormant capabilities awaken. And these Saiyans, from Universe 6, they're genuinely related to Uzumaki clan through ancient genetic connections. Naruto nodded. Distant relations separated by dimensional barriers and millennia of independent evolution. Though certain traits remained remarkably consistent, stubbornness, vitality, unusual chakra characteristics in our case, and propensity for destructive capability when provoked. Sasuke added dryly, having observed Caulifla's combat demonstration earlier that day. Their transformation abilities resemble certain Kekkei Genkei effects, through entirely different mechanisms. Their conversation continued as Sasuke shared intelligence from his reconnaissance mission, information that acquired new significance given dimensional revelations. He'd detected unusual energy fluctuations beyond traditional boundaries, patterns that now clearly represented dimensional thinning rather than conventional threats. I'll continue perimeter monitoring while your expedition proceeds, Sasuke decided. If additional incursions occur during your absence, coordinated response will be essential. As they concluded strategic planning, Sasuke fixed Naruto with characteristically direct assessment. These celestial entities, gods of destruction and angels, their interest in our world extends beyond humanitarian concern. Be cautious regarding their ultimate objectives. Always, Naruto assured him, though Marcarita has provided critical assistance without obvious hidden agenda so far. The angel attendant, Sasuke noted with subtle but perceptible undertone. Her observation patterns regarding you specifically suggest interest beyond professional assessment. Naruto blinked, caught off guard by this unexpected observation. What exactly are you suggesting? Merely observation, Sasuke replied with hint of rare amusement. Though interspecies diplomatic relations wasn't covered in academy curriculum as I recall. Before Naruto could formulate appropriate response to this uncharacteristic teasing, Sasuke departed with typical abruptness, leaving behind both tactical intelligence and unexpected conversational discomfort in equal measure. Dawn arrived with characteristic efficiency, painting Konoha's eastern horizon with golden light that seemed somehow more vibrant through Naruto's enhanced perception. The expedition team assembled at Northern Gate, specialized equipment distributed according to carefully calculated weight and accessibility parameters. Kakashi addressed them with formal authority of Hokage office, yet unmistakable personal concern beneath. This mission combines unprecedented importance with extraordinary unknown variables. Standard protocols provide minimal guidance for dimensional archive retrieval. Exercise maximum adaptability while maintaining core security parameters. We'll establish regular communication windows despite potential dimensional interference, Shikamaru assured him. Already calculating contingencies with characteristic strategic precision. Primary, secondary, and tertiary channels with varied transmission methodologies. Final preparations completed with practiced efficiency. The team departed north toward territories largely unexplored since the Fourth Ninja War. Their journey would traverse increasingly unstable regions where dimensional thinning created unpredictable effects on both environment and chakra functionality. As Konoha faded behind them, Naruto sensed subtle shifts in energy patterns surrounding their group, reality itself seeming to respond to their passage with microscopic fluctuations visible only through his hybrid perception. The convergence accelerated perceptibly with each passing hour, dimensional barriers thinning like ice in spring sunlight. 17 days until irreversible cascade begins, he reminded himself silently. 17 days to locate the archive, implement adaptation protocols, and establish stabilization pathways throughout the population. The expedition moved forward with determined purpose, each step carrying them closer to knowledge that might preserve their world, or confirm its inevitable transfo. Mission into something beyond current comprehension. Whatever awaited at the original convergence point where Kagaya first arrived millennia ago, Naruto faced it with the same unwavering resolve that had defined his journey from outcast child to dimensional nexus point. The shinobi world stood at unprecedented crossroads, poised between catastrophic collapse and evolutionary transformation. As dimensional barriers continued thinning around them, one certainty remained. Nothing would remain unchanged when worlds designed for separation finally, inevitably collided. Chapter 3 End. The End. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Remember to subscribe and like this video. See you in the next video.